Chapter 2190. When the words New Cruise's director's mother were uttered, everyone present was stunned. When they came to their senses, they were all shocked. The mother of New Cruise's director, Chin Yiru? What did she mean? What do you mean? Master Gu stared at Yun Jian blankly when he heard Yun Jian. Did she know what she was saying? Literally. I didn't know that the Gu family's status in Country Z is so high that even New Cruise feels inferior. Yun Jian's next words shocked everyone. My New Cruise? You're the director of New Cruise? Master Gu was stupefied when he heard Yun Jian. After recovering from his shock, he stared at Yun Jian. New Cruise was now an international company. The Gu family's company was at most a little famous in Country Z. For multinational companies like New Cruise, the Gu family could only look up to them. Although the Gu family was an armaments family, it was said that New Cruise had dealings with people from the black market. It was said that New Cruise rose to prominence in Longmen City back then, and the company was close to Longmen City's mafia group, Xia Province's top mafia group, Falcon Hall. It could be said that the Gu family was a wealthy and influential family. However, it paled in comparison to New Cruise. No. Impossible. The information shows that you're only. Even Master Gu, who had always been shrewd, was at a loss from Yun Jian's pressure. Great-grandfather, she said that she edited the information herself. Gu Ling spoke up just as old man Gu was shaking his head in bewilderment. Gu Ling was not likable, but she did not spout nonsense during critical moments like this. The Gu family was powerful and influential. Now that Master Gu was using his influence to force Gu Junjian and Chin Yiru to divorce, Yun Jian revealed her identity as New Cruise's director just to protect Chin Yiru. That was all. If Yun Jian did not reveal her identity, then according to what Master Gu had said just now, she was afraid that he would be ruthless to Chin Yiru. Gu Junjian immediately realized that Yun Jian was trying to protect Chin Yiru. After hearing this, he paused for a moment and immediately added on Yun Jian's behalf. Grandfather, my daughter is indeed the director of New Cruise. Yiru is the mother of New Cruise's director. Gu Junjian never lied. Therefore, Master Gu completely believed Gu Junjian's words. When Master Gu turned to look at Yun Jian again, the color of his eyes seemed to have changed. The chairman of New Cruise was actually an 18-year-old girl. The extremely mysterious director of New Cruise was actually the daughter of Gu Junjian's new wife, whom he had always thought of as an unfilial grandson. The news was so shocking that Master Gu could not snap out of it for a long time. Not only Master Gu, but everyone present also looked at Yun Jian in disbelief. However, just as everyone present was in shock and fear, a loud and strong male voice suddenly rang from outside the door. Haha. Gu family, what's up with today? It's so lively. The crowd turned to look and saw a big, burly man who was blind in one eye entering the house. The moment she saw the man, Yun Jian's eyes narrowed slightly. Uncle Bao Lei. Gu Ling exclaimed excitedly the moment she saw the man. Her voice was so loud that it was as if she was afraid that others would not know about her relationship with the man. The newcomer was none other than the leader of the Storm Mercenaries and the Rampage Mercenaries, Bao Lei. He was also the one-eyed man whom Yun Jian had met at Marilena's tomb previously. After meeting Bao Lei at Marilena's tomb, Yun Jian had made everyone present drink the 3-hour amnesia liquid, so Bao Lei must have forgotten about what happened at Marilena's tomb. As expected, after Bao Lei appeared, he only glanced at Yun Jian briefly before turning his gaze to Master Gu. Master Gu, you're in a good mood. Is it not the right time for me to come today? After Bao Lei spoke, he also said a few words politely. How could that be? Come in and have a seat. Master Gu glanced sideways at Yun Jian, then quickly gestured for Bao Lei to sit on a bench near the hall. We're all family. We're all family. Jun Jian, hurry up and ask your wife and children to sit down. Master Gu was indeed an experienced strategist. After learning about Yun Jian's identity, he did not mention it again. Instead, his attitude toward Yun Jian and Chin Yiru took a 360-degree turn. Bao Lei nodded and sat down. The people present were not inexperienced. Seeing this, they snapped out of their shock in the fact that Yun Jian was New Cruise's director. Just as they snapped out of their daze, they saw Bao Lei, who had just sat down, staring at Yun Jian for a few seconds. The next moment, under everyone's gaze, he suddenly frowned and spoke to Yun Jian. "This young lady, have we met before, eh?" Chapter 2191. Everyone was shocked to see Bao Lei looking at Yun Jian and asking such a question. "What's wrong? Bao Lei, have you met her?" Old man Gu was stunned when he heard this, and then he spoke. Bao Lei was a frequent visitor to the Gu residence. Although Bao Lei was the leader of the Rampage Corps of the International Gale mercenary group, Bao Lei's father was close to Master Gu. Bao Lei's father often visited the Gu residence when he was alive. Now that Bao Lei's father had passed away, Bao Lei remembered his father's memory and learned from his father's habits. As long as the Gale mercenary group was free, he would visit the Gu residence. "She looks familiar," Bao Lei replied with a frown. Before Yun Jian could say anything after Bao Lei said that, Gu Ling spoke before the rest of them and even pointed at Yun Jian before he spoke. "Uncle Bao Lei, it's her. She said at the Gu family's training ground that you were shocked when you saw the Gu family's training ground because you didn't have good taste. She said you were lying through your teeth. She even said you met her in Marilyn's tomb." Gu Ling was shocked when he found out about Yun Jian's identity as New Cruise's director. However, Gu Ling did not know much about New Cruise. She thought New Cruise was definitely weaker than the Gu family's company. Of course, Gu Ling was shocked that Yun Jian had founded her own company at such a young age. Comparing her to herself and her peers, there was no harm in comparison. Other than that, Gu Ling had no other thoughts. Originally, Gu Ling's words were said to Bao Lei in a complaining tone. When Bao Lei heard Gu Ling's words, he seemed to have recalled something. He grabbed the table beside the stool he was sitting on and stood up to tell Yun Jian, "Brother Gu Ling, please don't worry. Yes. It's Marilena's tomb. I remember now. I'm sure we met in Marilena's tomb." Bao Lei roared these words in an affirmative tone. Gu Ling had only wanted to complain. She did not expect Bao Lei to go along with what she said and stand up with a slap on the table in front of everyone to say that to Yun Jian. When Yun Jian saw this, she only narrowed her eyes slightly and did not say anything. At this moment, Gu Ling glared at Yun Jian and asked Bao Lei all his questions. "Uncle Bao Lei, if she also went to Marilyn's tomb, then don't you remember each other? Why does it sound like you lost your memory after coming out of a tomb?" As it turned out, Gu Ling didn't know what happened in Marilena's tomb with the international bigwigs. Speaking of this, Bao Lei fell silent. After 2 seconds of silence, Bao Lei said, "You're right. You're right. After we came out of Marilena's tomb, we lost our memory for 3 hours." When Bao Lei said this, his tone was unusually heavy. "Ah." Gu Ling was stunned when she heard this. "Uncle Bao Lei, could it be that you really lost your memories in Marilena's tomb?" As Gu Ling said this, she suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. Her entire body trembled, and she was so frightened that her face lost its luster. In front of Master Gu and everyone else, Bao Lei nodded and responded, "Yes." This response caused everyone present, including Gu Zihao and the others, to feel a trace of trembling in their hearts. Why did losing one's memories in a tomb give people an indescribable feeling of strangeness and dread? And in the tomb, we can't remember anything about what happened in the tomb. By the way, young friend, you also lost your memory, right? As Bao Lei spoke, he turned his gaze to Yun Jian and used a scrutinizing gaze to slap her face. It was as if he was paying attention to Yun Jian's every move, afraid that he would miss any details. Chapter 2192. However, Bao Lei couldn't find any clues on Yun Jian's face. Novel, with the dream, WW, Suimeng, La, Yun Jian only blinked her eyes slightly. She used a voice that didn't make it seem like she was lying and said indifferently, "Yeah. Then I'm guessing that everyone who entered Marilena's tomb lost their memories." Bao Lei was clearly disappointed. After a moment of disappointment, he suddenly said, "Oh right, I made a friend in the tomb. He should be here soon. I'll introduce him to you later." Just as he finished speaking, a burly figure stopped outside the door and walked in. On this cold winter day, the owner of this figure only wore a vest and walked into the house from the door. This burly figure had 2 exposed arms. On his left arm was a tattoo of a male tiger, and on his right arm was a tattoo of a female tiger. It looked quite frightening. The person who came in was Tiger, ranked 2nd on the international assassin rankings. Tiger looked around. When he saw Yun Jian, his eyes fiercely moved, and then he walked toward Bao Lei. "This is my friend, Mr. Shermi." Bao Lei walked over and pointed at Tiger as he introduced him to everyone. Tiger's identity naturally couldn't be easily announced to the public. Therefore, Bao Lei gave Tiger a proper name. "Hello everyone." Tiger glanced sideways at everyone and revealed a fake smile. Finally, he turned his gaze to Yun Jian. Tiger only glanced at Yun Jian for a moment before he looked away without leaving a trace. When Master Gu saw Tiger's burly figure, he was stunned and asked Bao Lei, "Little Lei, where is this friend of yours from?" Master Gu had always respected people with great power. Moreover, Master Gu knew very well that people with great power generally liked to hang out with people with great power. They didn't care about those who didn't have the ability. It was obvious that Bao Lei had brought friends to the Gu family's house more than once. And for someone of Bao Lei's status, the friends he brought naturally weren't ordinary people. Socializing in high society was about introducing one's friends to each other. If they got along well, they would become friends and even cooperate in business. Of course, even if there wasn't any business cooperation, the necessary pleasantries couldn't be avoided. "I'm just a nobody. There's no need to mention me," Tiger responded to Master Gu before Bao Lei could. Oh, old man Gu listened to old Tiger's words and nodded his head. That pair of shrewd eyes refracted a ray of light, but it quickly turned and disappeared. Master Gu was indeed a very snobbish fellow. But if Master Gu had to put it in his own words, his Gu family had been a rich and powerful family since the last century. Ordinary people really didn't catch his eye. Therefore, after hearing Tiger say that he was just a nobody, Master Gu ignored Tiger. Instead, he used a kind tone to ask Yun Jian about her well-being. Yun Jian's eyes darkened slightly. She answered Master Ji's question half-heartedly, but from the corner of her eye, she could feel Tiger and Bao Lei looking at her. Yun Jian didn't find it strange that Bao Lei would appear here. He, Tiger, ranked 2nd on the international assassin ranking, would disguise himself as a nobody and come to the Gu family's house. Or to put it another way. Did Tiger disguise himself as an ordinary person and come to the Gu family's house with Bao Lei to test her? Or did he really have a good relationship with Bao Lei and come out to relax? Just as Yun Jian was thinking about this, Tiger sized up Yun Jian again. He squeezed his thick eyebrows. Just as everyone forgot about the previous topic, he mentioned something to Yun Jian again. "This young lady looks very familiar. Have we met at Marilena's tomb?" It was this sentence again. Gu Ling was about to roll his eyes in boredom. Gu Feng, Gu Zihao, and the rest narrowed their eyes and didn't have much of a reaction. Qin Yiru, Gu Junjian, Yun Yi, and everyone else present had a flash of doubt in their hearts, but no one said anything. "I heard from Lingling that she has indeed been to Marilena's tomb," Bao Lei added in a very normal manner. Tiger nodded when he heard this. Yun Jian looked up slightly but still didn't say anything. No one around them noticed anything unusual about Tiger and Bao Lei's conversation. Old man Gu, on the other hand, narrowed his already narrowed eyes into a line. However, just as everyone thought that this conversation had ended, Tiger suddenly pulled out an unrecognizable lighter from his pocket. It was almost burnt out and showed it to Yun Jian. When she saw this lighter, Yun Jian's deep black eyes narrowed again. This was the lighter she used to burn her body in her previous life's coffin when she was in Marilena's tomb. Just as a sharp glint flashed in Yun Jian's dark eyes, she heard the tiger's roar. Then, "Young lady, may I ask if you have any impression of this lighter, eh?" Chapter 2193. There was no doubt that the lighter was almost unrecognizable from the fire. However, it wasn't hard to tell that this lighter was the one she had thrown at the corpse of her previous life in the tomb and burned it to ashes. Novel, with the dream, W.W. Suimeng, La, Uncle Bao Lei, your friend is really a weirdo. What's there to recognize about this lighter? It's just a piece of scrap metal. Gu Ling stared at the lighter for a long time before he finally opened his mouth and asked in confusion. Tiger wasn't from country Z, but his pronunciation was very accurate. None of the people present were surprised by this. The Gu family was a wealthy family after all. The younger generation of the Gu family was definitely more knowledgeable than ordinary people. Perhaps ordinary people would be shocked and incredulous if they saw that a foreigner like Tiger could speak Chinese with such accurate pronunciation. However, Gu Ling and the others had grown up with higher education. They had seen many things and were naturally not surprised by such things. At this moment, Gu Ling had finally voiced out everyone's doubts. What was there to recognize about this lighter? It was just a piece of scrap metal. Bao Lei only laughed silently and didn't reply to Gu Ling. If it were anyone else, they would probably have told everyone everything that had happened in the tomb in a boastful tone. However, Bao Lei and Tiger were both influential figures internationally. Those in the underworld had to always remember one thing: speak less and do more. Bao Lei and Tiger knew this very well. Therefore, even if they were stupid, they wouldn't come forward to explain. To put it simply, Bao Lei and Tiger were much more meticulous than those small international figures. At this moment, Gu Ling's words didn't attract anyone's attention. Tiger and Bao Lei both stared at Yun Jian, waiting for her reply. Seeing this, Yun Jian lowered her eyes and said, I don't remember. My memory only stops at the 3 hours before entering the tomb. Yun Jian's eyes were crystal clear, and her delicate and beautiful face was flushed red. Just like before, there was no change in her expression, and there was no trace of her lying. At least, Tiger and Bao Lei couldn't tell that Yun Jian was lying. Their black eyes flashed at the same time. Haha. It seems that the little girl is like us, she really lost her memory. After Tiger heard this, he put the lighter back into his trouser pocket and said with a smile. It was hard to tell if it was mockery, suspicion, or if it was a complete dismissal of his suspicions about Yun Jian. Everyone must be hungry, right? Judging from the time, lunch should be ready in the kitchen. Let's eat together, Master Gu said at this moment. After all, Master Gu was a rather dignified person. After he finished speaking, everyone immediately agreed. Yun Jian also followed them to the Gu family's big dining room. The Gu family had many dining rooms. They were divided into Dining Room 1, Dining Room 2, Dining Room 3, and so on. Today, Master Gu brought everyone to Dining Room 6 to eat rice and other main dishes. The Gu family's luxurious dining room wasn't just for show. This dining room's rectangular dining table was at least 20 meters long and 5 to 6 meters wide. It could seat dozens of people without feeling crowded. At this moment, Master Gu was sitting at the front of the table. It was the best seat, which symbolized the greatest authority. The dishes were slowly brought to the table. One by one, the maids brought all kinds of dishes to the table. It had to be said that the Gu family's lifestyle was very extravagant. At this moment, Yun Jian was sitting next to Qin Yiru. Next to her, the maids were serving the dishes one by one. Just as Yun Jian glanced to the side, the maid who was carrying a bowl of boiling seaweed soup to the table suddenly trembled. The boiling soup poured directly onto Yun Jian. Chapter 2194. Chapter 2195. Outside the villa, Yun Jian returned to the house after washing herself with cold water for a while. Yun Jian was actually fine. After soaking her body in the spring of Deity Continent for 666 days, even minor cuts and gunshot wounds could heal automatically in the shortest amount of time. As for the seaweed soup that was about 100 degrees Celsius poured onto Yun Jian's hand, she did not even feel the slightest pain. It was just that her hand was a little sticky, that was all. Even when Qin Yiru grabbed Yun Jian's hand to wash it with cold water, she could not help exclaiming in surprise when she saw that there was not even a hint of redness or burn marks on Yun Jian's hand. Xiao Jian, why aren't there any burn marks on your hand when the seaweed soup is so hot? Mom. When she washed the back of her hand that was supposed to be burned with cold water, Yun Jian put her index finger to her lips and made a shushing motion. Qin Yiru kept her mouth shut and said nothing more. When they entered the villa, Yun Jian held her hand purposely as if she could not stand the burn. Junjian, are you okay? Master Gu asked after studying Gu Junjian with a gentle gaze. He was asking if Yun Jian was all right. No matter what the truth was, at least for now, the position of New Cruise's director was in Yun Jian's hands. When he found out that New Cruise's director was Yun Jian but suspected to be Gu Junjian, Master Ge's way of addressing Gu Junjian had changed. Most of the soup was poured on the down jacket on my arm. My hand wasn't scalded much, so it's fine. When we go back tonight, I'll buy an ice cube from a shop outside. The swelling will go down tomorrow, Gu Junjian answered Master Gu. Huh? Junjian, you guys aren't staying the night at the Gu residence? Master Gu asked with a frown after hearing Gu Junjian's words. Everyone present saw Master Ge's change in attitude. How Master Gu treated Gu Junjian, Qin Yiru, and Yun Yi before this was how obvious his change was now. Grandpa, do you wish for me to bring my wife and children to stay the night at the Gu residence? Gu Junjian asked Master Gu in front of everyone. Gu Junjian was indirectly asking old Master Gu if he would accept his wife and children. If he didn't, then there was no need for him to stay here any longer. Master Gu was silent. A smart person like Master Gu naturally understood what Gu Junjian was implying. If he were to agree now, it would mean that he would have to accept Yun Jian and the rest. However, on second thought, if this unfilial grandson of Gu Junjian really gave the new cruise that he had worked so hard to manage to Yun Jian, he would not be able to live with himself if he did not find a chance to lecture him in private. Hence, Master Gu went all the way and replied, "We're a family now, why are you still being so considerate?" Qin Yiru was genuinely happy to hear that. At the same time, she heaved a huge sigh of relief. Before they came, Gu Junjian had already told Yun Jian and the rest about Master Ge's temper. He was a typical old-fashioned, feudalistic man. The only thing that could make Master Gu compromise was an international corporation that was more powerful than the Gu family. Old man Gu respected the strong very much. He was also in awe of those who had a higher status than his Gu family. Hence, he had agreed that if Master Gu refused to compromise, he would reveal that Yun Jian was the director of New Cruise. Reality proved that Gu Junjian understood Master Gu very well and Master Gu did not disappoint. Under the circumstances where Yun Jian's power was exposed, he gave in again and again. Since Master Gu had spoken, Gu Junjian naturally brought Yun Jian and the rest to stay. After all, whether it was Gu Junjian or Qin Yiru, they wanted to have normal relations with the Gu family. It would be best if they could reconcile. After knowing that Yun Jian would be staying, Tiger and Bao Lei also chose to stay at the Gu residence. Their reason was that they wanted to have a good talk with Master Gu at night about some business matters. As long as they mentioned business matters that would benefit them, Master Gu would agree without a doubt. In the afternoon, Gu Feng brought Yun Jian to the Gu family's courtyard for a tour. The Gu family's courtyard was huge and luxurious. Not only was there a specialized training ground, but there was also an archery range for archery, a shooting range for marksmanship, a swimming pool, and so on. The Gu family's buildings were similar to the only six-star hotel in the world, the Empire Hotel in Brunei. At the same time, when Gu Feng brought Yun Jian around for a tour, Gu Zihao and the rest who were training in the morning, including Gu Ling, tagged along. In reality, Master Gu was still unsure if New Cruise belonged to Gu Junjian or Yun Jian. To avoid any mistakes, he had the younger generation of the Gu family follow Yun Jian so that they could build a good relationship with Yun Jian. Hence, Gu Ling and the rest tagged along unwillingly. When they arrived at the shooting range, Gu Zihao and the rest went to shoot. Seeing this, Gu Ling could not help hinting at Yun Jian. "Weren't you pretty good at the training ground earlier? Do you know how to use a gun?" Do you know how to shoot? Do you want my brothers to teach you and bring you to try it out, eh? Chapter 2196. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Yunjian's abnormal behavior. Gu Ling was taken aback by Yunjian's familiarity with fighting techniques in the training ground just now. It had to be said that Gu Ling felt like he had eaten sheep shit at that time. Gu Ling was 20 years old, a young girl in her prime. Girls at this age were prideful, and after being dealt a huge blow by Yunjian, Gu Ling was in a bad mood. She didn't believe that Yunjian knew everything. She wasn't an all-round genius. Moreover, shooting wasn't something that could be learned with a single glance. She had asked her brother, Gu Zihao, to teach her how to shoot, but she never hit the target. How could Yunjian know how to shoot? Don't make me laugh. Just as Gu Ling was thinking, Yunjian spoke softly, I don't know. Gu Ling heaved a sigh of relief when she heard Yunjian's reply. She knew that Yunjian would say that. After all, no one was perfect. How could there be an all-round person in this world? Gu Ling swayed her body and gave a look that said, I know even if you don't say it. She then glared at Yunjian. Then do you know how to shoot? Gu Ling asked again. The biggest difference between shooting and archery was that shooting was done with a gun, and it was a test of accuracy. Archery, on the other hand, was done with a bow and arrow. Not only did it require accuracy, it also required the strength of the arm when shooting the arrow. At least in Gu Ling's opinion, archery was more difficult than shooting. If Yunjian didn't know how to shoot, then she definitely didn't know how to shoot. Sure enough, as Gu Ling expected, Yunjian replied with the same two simple words, I don't know. Yo! Brother Zihao is amazing. Another 10 shots hit the bullseye 10 times. Our Gu family's all-round expert, it's you. Not only are you the strongest, you're also a good shot. Regardless of whether it's a gaming competition or an archery competition, you can easily get first place. You're King amazing. At this moment, someone from the Gu family started to exaggerate about Gu Ling's brother, Gu Zihao. An all-round expert. One had to know that if a person was only proficient in one ability, they might be able to brag about it in a certain field. However, if you were an all-rounder with skills and marksmanship, then even if you were weaker than others in one aspect, people would still call you a genius. When Gu Ling heard that his brother was being praised even more, he raised his head proudly and looked at Yunjian with his eyes that seemed to be showing off to Yunjian. For the whole afternoon, Gu Ling was in a state of showing off. At first, she hated Yunjian because Yunjian was too outstanding. Later, when he dragged Yunjian to many places in the Gu family, Gu Ling realized that Yunjian did not know anything at all. Other than the time when Yunjian pointed out Gu Zihao's weakness at the training ground so that Yun-Yi could defeat Gu Zihao, she did not know anything else. This made Gu Ling avoid Yunjian from the beginning. Later, he even pretended to be good friends with Yunjian and tried to get closer to Yunjian. Yunjian, that's our Gu family's aquarium. It's big enough, right? You've never seen it before, right? As Gu Ling spoke, he wanted to walk next to Yunjian like a pair of close friends. Yunjian avoided him discreetly. They spent the whole afternoon walking around the Gu family's house. However, the Gu family's house was big enough that they could see many things that could not be seen outside. Therefore, Gu Feng, Gu Ling, and Gu Zihao brought Yunjian to walk around the Gu family's house. Gu Ling also thought that he had regained a lot of confidence from Yunjian. She was just an ordinary person who did not know anything. It was not until 5:30 in the evening that the sun in the west officially set, and the last trace of afterglow was swallowed up by the night. It was winter in Zhe province, and the sky was almost completely dark by 5:30. Yunjian felt that the figure who had been following them since the afternoon had left. She looked at everyone indifferently and said that she wanted to go back to her bedroom to rest. At that time, night had already fallen. There were only 2 shirtless men soaking in the cold winter water in the Gu family's swimming pool. Neither of them showed any signs of shivering from the cold water. On the contrary, in this weather that was almost -degrees Celsius, these 2 shirtless men soaked in the swimming pool and looked relaxed. Looking closer, these two shirtless men were Tiger and Bao Lei, weren't they? At that moment, a figure suddenly flashed by from the side. Then, a man dressed in black and wearing a mask, revealing only a pair of dark eyes like two black holes, stood in front of Tiger and Bao Lei. Did you find anything? At that moment, Bao Lei's hands were lazily resting on the swimming tiles. He did not look at the person who appeared behind him and asked directly. No. I've been following her since this afternoon. She didn't notice me, and she doesn't even seem to know how to use a gun. At the shooting range, I heard her say with my own mouth that she doesn't know how to shoot. Top reading address A. Chapter 2197. The man with dark eyes and a black mask was dressed in black from head to toe. Obviously, he was Bao Lei's subordinate. Bao Lei was the captain of the Berserk army of the Gale mercenary group. The Berserk army had a total of 120 people, and every one of them was an elite among elites. The man who spoke to Bao Lei was one of the 120 people in the Berserk army. Other than the captain Bao Lei and the vice captain, there was no one else in the Berserk army other than the captain. This chapter is not authorized and cannot be read in green for the time being. To support the author, please go to the official website to pay for reading. A. Chapter 2198. At this moment, Gu Ling was like a child who had lost his way. He reached out his hands to hug Gu Junjian, but Gu Junjian kept pushing him away. You deserve better. Besides, I already have a wife that I love. Gu Ling, get out of my way. Gu Junjian resisted Gu Ling's attempt to hug him as he retreated to the side. He looked like he was in a hurry to leave. No. No. I just like you. I just like Uncle Junjian. This chapter is not authorized and cannot be read in green for the time being. If you support the author, please go to the official website to pay for it. A. Chapter 2199. A shrill, panicked female voice rang out, and a panicked female silhouette walked past. Sui Meng Shao. Say, Cirque. Sui Meng. One Athos woman was clearly an old employee of the Gu family. When she discovered the location of the fire, she hurriedly ran to find someone to put it out. At that moment, the woman was followed by a group of servants from the Gu family who had been called over to rescue her. Their noisy voices suddenly woke everyone up from the silence of the night. When the woman's voice rang out, Yun Jian also stopped walking toward the villa where Tiger and Bao Lei were. She called out to Gu Junjian and ran in the direction where the woman had gathered everyone to save someone. It was a villa that had been abandoned by the Gu family for many years. The villa was built in an old style, and at first glance, it looked like an old villa that had been built in the middle of the last century. At this moment, the fire in the villa was raging fiercely. The fire gathered together, giving the people standing in front of the old villa the illusion that the fire was so monstrous that it could even poke a hole in the sky. Io, save someone. Save someone. Someone's going to die. Someone carried an unconscious woman into this old villa. Someone's going to die. Why aren't you coming to save her? The woman who had discovered the fire earlier stood in front of the old villa and shouted loudly. Some of the more agile servants had already reacted. They carried buckets of water to the water source area to get water to put out the fire. Some of the servants tried to rush into the old villa where the flames had already reached the sky. However, the flames were simply too big, and ordinary people couldn't enter at all. Even if they did, they would definitely be burned alive. The woman in the old villa couldn't be a relative that they had to save, so the servants all stopped in their tracks. What's going on? What the hell is going on? Old Gu, who hadn't even changed out of his pajamas and only had time to put on a coat, hurriedly rushed over. When he saw the blazing fire in the old villa, he was so frightened that he stepped back fiercely. He didn't stop until he was supported by someone. At this moment, even Gu Ling, who had been rejected by Gu Junjian and was in a daze, had regained his senses and followed the others here. Seeing the towering flames, Gu Ziheo and the others who had followed closely behind also stopped in their tracks. They were stunned. Master. Someone ran in here with an unconscious woman on his back. I thought it was strange, but I was patrolling, so I followed him in. Then what happened to you? I found out that the unconscious woman was actually young Master Gu Yunjian's new wife. What should I do now? I was a woman, so I definitely couldn't beat that man, so I ran to call for help. But when I called someone back, I saw that the villa was on fire. Fire. I was so scared that I ran to call for help. Now that the fire is so big, our people can't even go in. Someone has already called the police and the fire engine, but we're in the suburbs. It'll take at least half an hour for the fire engine to come. This person will be burned to a crisp inside. What should we do? The woman hurriedly walked in front of Grandfather Gu and said these words loudly. The woman's words confirmed that the person in the old villa was Qin Yiru without a doubt. The answer was obvious. The person who had drugged Qin Yiru was Tiger or Bao Lei's men. Yun Jian smirked coldly. She wanted to rush into the old villa to save her. Stay here obediently. I'll go. I'll definitely bring Yiru out safely. Gu Junjian stopped her and was about to rush into the old villa as he spoke. Uncle Junjian, you can't go. You can't go. I won't allow you to go. The fire here is so big, you'll only die if you go in. Let's wait for the fire engine to come. When Gu Ling saw that Gu Junjian wanted to rush into the villa, she hugged Gu Yunjian's thigh tightly, preventing Gu Junjian from going forward. The situation was so chaotic that no one had the time to care about Gu Ling's actions. No one is allowed to go. If you go, you can only send yourself to your death. Wait for the fire engine. Wait for the fire engine to come and put out the fire. Don't add to the casualties. Master Gu said sternly, stopping everyone's actions. At that moment, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She knew that this was a trap set up by Tiger and Bao Lei. Seeing that Gu Junjian was being held back in Master Ji's order, she walked toward the old villa without hesitation. In a flash, she entered the burning main door. Right after Master Gu finished speaking, someone pointed in the direction where Yun Jian had disappeared and exclaimed, attracting everyone's attention. She went in. She went in. Chapter 2200. Page 1/1. Just as Yun Jian entered the old mansion, a sharp glint flashed across Gu Yunjian's eyes. In the next second, he kicked Gu Ling, who was hugging his thigh, away and dashed into the old mansion as well amidst the gasps of the crowd. Junjian, come back. Come back. What are you doing? For a woman, you're crazy. When Master Gu saw Gu Junjian rushing into the burning old mansion, his eyes widened, and he shouted out in shock. However, Gu Junjian would not listen to Grandfather Gu. In a flash, he dashed into the door of the old villa that the group of servants did not dare to enter. The door had been completely burned by the fire, the door that the group of servants did not dare to enter. She really went into the old mansion? God! Is she not afraid of death? With such a big fire, even I don't have the confidence to go in. Gu Zihao stared blankly at Yun Jian rushing into the old mansion, and was unable to regain his senses for a long time. Previously at the training ground, although Yun Yi had defeated him, and it was Yun Jian who had pointed out his weakness, Yun Yi was able to defeat him. However, Gu Zihao was not convinced by Yun Jian's strength. She was just a girl, and a girl's strength could not be compared to a guy's. What about techniques? She was just a girl, how could she have so many techniques? Furthermore, previously at the training ground, he had been careless, and that was why Yun Yi's sneak attack was successful. Gu Zihao, who thought this way, had always thought that Yun Jian's strength was very ordinary. Perhaps some people were only good at talking, and could point out a person's weakness when watching them fight, but if they were to fight personally, they would not have any strength at all. In Gu Zihao's eyes, Yun Jian should be that kind of person. She was only good at talking, and could quickly find a person's weakness, but she did not have any strength. It's over, it's over. I think that house is about to collapse. Who knows how dangerous it is inside? If this person is pinned down, even the gods can't save her. When the woman saw this scene, she was scared out of her wits. Everyone present, without exception, thought that Yunjian and Gu Junjian were finished this time. When Yunyi heard that his mother was in the old mansion, and that Gu Junjian and his sister had rushed in to save her, his first reaction was to rush in as well. After that, the Gu family, who trained every day, joined forces to hold Yunyi back, and did not let Yunyi rush in to save her. Don't go in. Nobody is allowed to go in. You're going in, you're going in. However, at this moment, everyone's expression was still as lifeless as before. However, 1 minute passed. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes passed. Inside the crumbling mansion, Yunjian and Gu Junjian were still nowhere to be seen. They couldn't have died in the sea of fire, right? Someone said in a soft yet terrified voice. Bah! Shut up. The people of my Gu family will not be buried in a sea of fire for a woman. Old man Gu shouted and stopped that person's words. 20 minutes had passed, and there was still no sign of them. Everyone started to panic. Originally, it would only take 3 minutes to walk from the furthest part of the old mansion to the main entrance. Now, 20 minutes had passed, and there was still no sign of them. What did this mean, Uncle Junjian? Gu Ling's cries could be heard from afar, and they would be affected by the sorrow and despair in his voice. Just when everyone thought that Yunjian and Gu Junjian would never come out, someone suddenly pointed at the mansion's main entrance and exclaimed. Look! There's someone. In the direction of his finger, 2 figures rushed out from the gate of the old villa. Gu Junjian carried the unconscious Qin Yiru and walked out of the mansion's main entrance with Yunjian. Everyone heaved a huge sigh of relief when they saw this. However, just when everyone heaved a sigh of relief and completely relaxed, a cement wall on the second floor of the old mansion suddenly collapsed. It slanted down and crashed down on the spot where Gu Junjian was carrying Qin Yiru. Everyone's expression changed drastically when they saw this. No! Master Gu shouted. He was so scared that his expression changed. Just when everyone thought that the huge, collapsing cement wall would crash down on Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru, who was in Gu Yunjian's arms, everyone suddenly saw a scene that made them extremely terrified and dumbfounded. Top reading website, M.A. Chapter 2201. A. Chapter 2202. A. Chapter 2203. Yunjian's words caused Tiger and Bao Lei, who were hiding in the dark, to stop in their tracks. She discovered us? She even discovered that we were trying to sneak away? When did she discover us? Tiger and Bao Lei twitched their lips. There's no one in the dark because of the forest. Yunjian, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Gu Ling was shocked by the scene just now. This chapter is not authorized and cannot be read in green for the time being. If you support the author, please go to the official website to pay for your reading. A. Chapter 2204. Tiger's words entered everyone's ears word by word. Everyone knew that Yunjian had been to Marilena's tomb. However, everyone thought that Yunjian had been to Marilena's tomb. That was true, but she had been to Marilena's tomb. She was at most cannon fodder, right? When the international bosses were fighting over the female corpse, she was at most a coward hiding in a corner, trembling and not daring to make a sound. There was a type of person who would be scared to death in a formal setting. She would cower in a corner and not even dare to speak to anyone. However, after leaving a formal setting and returning to school, this person would be very cocky in front of her classmates. She would then boast about what she had seen in a formal setting and exaggerate. In fact, she would be so scared that she would hide in a corner and not dare to speak to anyone in a formal setting. Everyone thought that Yunjian was that kind of person. She would rely on the fact that she had been to Marilena's tomb. Even if she had cowered in a corner and shivered in Marilena's tomb, she would act like she was the king in Marilena's tomb when she left Marilena's tomb and returned to school or her relatives. However, Tiger's words completely dispelled everyone's opinion of Yunjian. Burn the female corpse? Even if she's really the director of new crews, even if she crushed the cement wall with a stomp, weren't there many international bosses fighting over the female corpse in Marilena's tomb? Before those international bosses, she should be a nobody who can't even lift her head. How could she have the ability to burn the female corpse? Guling asked in a daze after hearing Tiger's words. No matter how powerful Yunjian was among the people, no matter how awesome she was, she should only be a coward in a place like that. How could she have burned the female corpse in front of everyone and come out alive? Furthermore, Tiger's words implied that the people who explored Marilena's tomb lost their memories, and it had something to do with Yunjian? No one paid any attention to Guling's words. Tiger met Yunjian's eyes and waited for Yunjian's reply. So you even checked the fingerprints on the lighter? No wonder you were so sure that she was the one who burned the female corpse from the very beginning. Bao Lei didn't know about this at first, so he tilted his head to look at Tiger and said this in a daze. No wonder. Tiger firmly believed that Yunjian was the one who burned the female corpse. So it was because he had already proven this point. Just after Bao Lei finished his words, a sound of nature, but it was very light, but it gave people a sense of fear. Suddenly, a female voice sounded. I didn't look for you, but you came to me on your own accord. The person who spoke was none other than Yunjian. At that moment, Yunjian suddenly spoke to Tiger in front of all the suspicious people present. Hearing this, Tiger, who had long forgotten Yunjian's identity, was suddenly stunned. Before Tiger could react, he saw Yunjian take another step toward him and say softly, "At Marilena's tomb, I wanted to let you go." At the end of these words, Tiger and Bao Lei widened their eyes. What did she say? Everyone's expression froze, and some of them didn't even dare to breathe heavily when they heard this. Just as everyone's breathing quickened, Yunjian's voice rang out again. However, in the next second, Yunjian's words made Tiger, Bao Lei, Guling, Gu Zihao, Master Gu, and everyone present widen their eyes in shock and fear. However, it's your fault for not cherishing your lives and insisting on challenging my bottom line again and again. Tiger, second on the international assassin ranking, and Bao Lei, leader of the Gale mercenary group and the Berserk group. Do you want to try dying under my butterfly knife again, eh? Chapter 2205. A. Chapter 2206. There was only one person in the world who had interfered with Tiger's 9 assassination missions and caused Tiger to only fail 1 assassination mission because of himself. Others might not have understood what Yunjian was saying, but Tiger was well aware. That person was none other than, you are. Tiger's mouth was wide open as he stared at Yunjian in a daze. Just as he was about to say this, he suddenly paused. Novel, with the dream, WW, Sui-Meng, La, Yunjian had already come before him, twirling that eye-catching butterfly knife. When the others heard Yunjian's words, they were stunned. It was because Yunjian knew so much about Tiger's identity. She even knew how many assassination missions Tiger had gone out on, the number of times he had completed them, and even the fact that he had been interfered with by others. She also said, the person who had interfered with Tiger's 9 assassination missions and caused Tiger's assassin life to fail 9 missions out of thin air was actually Gu Yunjian's new wife, the child of Qin Yiru and her ex-husband. Yunjian. What kind of background did she have? She actually had the ability to interfere with the mission of the second-ranked assassin on the international assassin ranking. If that was the case, then wouldn't Yunjian's ability be even more powerful than the second-ranked assassin on the international assassin ranking, Tiger? Master Gu, Guling, and Gu Zihao all stared blankly at the scene in front of them. They were so frightened that they almost couldn't move. At that moment, Yunjian was standing less than 5 meters away from Tiger. She twirled the butterfly knife in a circle, then stood in front of Tiger, her eyes slightly dark. It was also because of Yunjian's twirling of the butterfly knife that the 2 words that Tiger was about to blurt out were instantly swallowed back into his stomach. But Tiger's eyes were so wide that they were almost popping out of their sockets, revealing the fear, horror, and astonishment he was feeling at that moment. She was, except for her. There was no one else in this world who could play with the butterfly knife so smoothly and speak to him in such a manner. Tiger froze on the spot. He widened his eyes and stared at Yunjian, as if he wanted to tear a crack out of Yunjian. Who is she? Bao Lei heard Tiger's words and suddenly asked Tiger who Yunjian was. Bao Lei had already forgotten what had happened in Marilena's tomb that day, so he naturally didn't know what Yunjian meant. At this moment, he suddenly heard Tiger looking at Yunjian with his eyes wide open. Bao Lei hurriedly spoke up. Everything that had happened in Marilena's tomb that day made Bao Lei deeply suspicious. Bao Lei desperately wanted to know the truth about what had happened in Marilena's tomb that day. This was because the female corpse that had been incinerated that day was most likely the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God. Bao Lei desperately wanted to know what had happened in Marilena's tomb. Tiger and Bao Lei's main purpose for coming here was to investigate the female corpse that Yunjian had incinerated. They wanted to know if the female corpse's true identity was the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God. However, just as Bao Lei was urgently asking Tiger about Yunjian's identity, Yunjian suddenly spoke up, speaking to Bao Lei before Tiger could. However, the words that came out of Yunjian's mouth were as if she knew everything about Bao Lei. That level of understanding of Bao Lei's identity made even Bao Lei widen his eyes in disbelief. Everyone present was even more shocked. Anyone in the underworld should know this principle. The less you know, the longer you live. Bao Lei, as the leader of the Rampage Corps, your Rampage Corps has always been weaker than Cotton's Corps under your leadership. The root of the problem is that you're too nosy, Bao Lei. Chapter 2207. Yunjian's words hit the nail on the head, leaving no room for sentiments. Follow your dreams? Speak as if you're going to die. If the crowd had heard Yunjian's words before, they would have thought that Yunjian had lost her mind when she spoke to Bao Lei in such a tone. How could she speak to Bao Lei in such a tone? However, now that Yunjian had said something like that, even though they did not know Yunjian's identity, they knew that even Tiger, the #2 assassin on the international assassin ranking, was no match for Yunjian. Although they were stunned, they could not accept the fact that Yunjian had spoken to Bao Lei in such a tone. What shocked the crowd was who Yunjian was. Not only did she know everything about Tiger, but she also knew about Bao Lei's identity and his position in Hurricane Mercenaries. Not only that, she seemed to know the other leader of Hurricane Mercenaries very well, and that leader's position in Hurricane Mercenaries seemed to be very high. His position seemed to be even higher than Bao Lei's. Yunjian, on the other hand, seemed to know everything about the identities and positions of these international big shots. It was as if there was no one she did not know. Even if she had purposely tried to find out about them, it should only be about a few individuals, right? Now that she was facing Tiger and Bao Lei, she was able to find out about their identities and even tell them things that surprised them. If she was only the chairman of New Crews, she would only be a legitimate force. How would she know about such things that lean towards the underworld? Why you know Cotton? When Bao Lei heard Yunjian's words, he was shocked that Yunjian knew so much about his identity and position. He was also shocked that Yunjian knew that his position in Hurricane Mercenaries was not as high as Cotton's and that he had always seen Cotton as a thorn in his side. Yunjian's words shocked Bao Lei. Perhaps. Yunjian turned her head to look at Bao Lei. She didn't give Bao Lei an absolute reply. Instead, she gave him a beautiful smile. Perhaps we should settle our old scores first. You sent someone to drug my mother, brought her into the villa, and set the villa on fire. Think about it, if I was just an ordinary person, wouldn't my mother be buried in the sea of fire? I'll have to settle this debt with the two of you one by one. Yunjian curled her lips slightly, but the words that came out of her mouth caused Tiger and Bao Lei to tremble. Especially Tiger. Tiger already knew Yunjian's identity. If Tiger had dared to stand out and humiliate Slaying God's body back in Marilena's tomb, that was because Slaying God was dead and he had nothing to fear. However, Slaying God was standing right in front of him, alive and well. Tiger had experienced Slaying God's ability before. When Slaying God was still alive, even if there were 10 tigers standing together, they might not even be able to touch the corner of her clothes. Therefore, Tiger was completely terrified when he found out about Yunjian's identity. Bao Lei trembled because he was like a naked child at that moment. Yunjian seemed to know everything about his identity. However, he knew nothing about Yunjian's identity. This made Bao Lei panic and he shuddered involuntarily. Then, I'll cripple one of your hands each. Yunjian curled her lips. Her lips were so cold that they were merely curled into a smile, but that was what she said. What? She's going to cripple one of their hands each? Isn't her mother fine? Gu Ling's eyes widened when he heard that. He was so shocked that he froze. Shut up. Don't make a sound. At this moment, old Master Gu was very clear that the current situation was no longer something that the Gu family could control. Therefore, he shouted at Gu Ling softly, forcing Gu Ling to swallow all the words that he wanted to say. Fortunately, the old villa was engulfed in flames. The loud crackling of the fire prevented Gu Ling and Master Ji's words from reaching Yunjian and Tiger's ears. Gu Ling rolled his eyes, thinking that Yunjian did not even know how to shoot. How could she be a match for the two international figures? He was waiting for the moment when Yunjian's lie would be exposed. Bang! Bang! 2 gunshots suddenly rang out. Chapter 2208. Gu Ling had just rolled his eyes at Yunjian when he saw Yunjian suddenly lift up the corner of her shirt. There was actually a silver pistol hidden in the corner of her shirt. And the silver pistol was hidden in the waist case under the corner of her shirt. Sui Meng? Small say, Sui Meng. Lot that moment, without waiting for Gu Ling to react, Yunjian held the pistol and fired at Tiger and Bao Lei without even looking up. The speed of the gun was so fast that it was impossible to see it clearly with the naked eye. At least Gu Ling was shocked. Gu Zihao and the rest were also stunned as they watched the 2 bullets shoot at Tiger and Bao Lei at lightning speed. Just as Gu Ling thought that Yunjian's 2 shots were just a bluff and that she didn't even know how to shoot and definitely didn't know how to use a gun, he saw the 2 bullets shoot at Tiger and Bao Lei's left wrists one after the other. They went straight into their meridians without missing a beat. Oh my God! This shooting skill! She didn't even look up just now. Some people didn't even have time to be shocked that Yunjian had a gun on her. When they saw this scene, their faces all changed in shock. At that moment, Bao Lei, who had been shot in the wrist by a bullet, clearly felt that his hand had been crippled by Yunjian's bullet. Only then did he react. Bao Lei fiercely held his wrist and glared at Yunjian. You! Just as Bao Lei was about to hit Yunjian to get back at her for his crippled hand, Tiger frowned. He didn't care about his crippled hand and used his other hand to grab Bao Lei's hand. We're no match for her. Tiger's words made everyone present so shocked that they couldn't use words to describe it. What? Even old man Gu widened his eyes and shouted in fear and astonishment. What did Tiger just say? Both he and Bao Lei were no match for Yunjian even if they worked together. How was this possible? Who was the daughter of Gu Yunjian's new wife? The Gu family members present, including the group of juniors led by Gu Ling and Gu Zihao, all widened their eyes in disbelief when they heard old Tiger's words. I'm willing to be crippled for this. Today, I was rash. We're all in the same boat, so please show mercy. Tiger, I'll take my leave first. Tiger had no choice but to rein in his uncouth nature. He had to lower his head in front of Slaying God. After saying that to Yunjian, Tiger gestured at Bao Lei, then turned around and left the place in a flash. Yunjian did not stop him. Tiger, ranked second on the international assassin chart, had submitted himself to Yunjian. He did not even dare to say a word when one of his hands was crippled. Who was this Yunjian? Although Bao Lei was suspicious and liked to poke his nose into other people's business, he was still the leader of the internationally renowned Rampage Corps. How could he survive without a brain? Therefore, not long after Tiger left, Bao Lei said something similar to what Tiger said to Yun Jian before turning to leave. Xiao Lei, you. Master Gu wanted to say something. However, Bao Lei did not even look at Master Gu and left in a hurry. They thought that Tiger and Bao Lei would go berserk after one of their hands was crippled by Yun Jian and retaliate against Yun Jian. However, what Gu Ling, Gu Zihao, and the rest of the younger generation of the Gu family did not expect was that Tiger and Bao Lei did not attack Yun Jian together as they had expected. In fact, they even ran away in fright. At the same time, Yun Jian wiped her silver pistol. Her sharp, eagle-like eyes scanned the crowd before she walked toward the main entrance of the Gu residence. Naturally, she was going to check on Qin Yiru. After old Tiger and Bao Lei left and Yun Jian walked to the door, old man Ji's heart finally calmed down. He heaved a huge sigh of relief and turned to look at the Gu family members, saying, "Let's go. You must forget everything that happened today as soon as possible. If anyone mentions it again in the future, you will be punished according to the family rules." Chapter 2209. Master Gu was no doubt an astute person. He had already realized the severity of the matter. If what happened today were to spread out in the Gu family, the consequences would be unthinkable. The family discipline that Master Gu mentioned was the harshest punishment in the Gu family. Do as you wish. Say/sh/. Suamenji. 1a Master Ge's words made everyone present aware of the severity of the matter, so none of them spoke of it. Even Gu Ling was forced to keep his mouth shut, not daring to utter a word. How was it enough to cripple one of Tiger and Bao Lei's hands? As for how to deal with Tiger and Bao Lei, Yun Jian had her own ideas. Just as Yun Jian reached the gate, she saw that Gu Junjian and Yun Yi had already helped Qin Yiru back to the Gu family's villa. The fire truck had finally arrived as well. It took less than 3 minutes for the fire truck to put out the blazing fire in the old villa. It was a false alarm, but it was a close call. Hearing Master Ge's words, the Gu family went to sleep as if nothing had happened. It was unfortunate that this night was not destined to be a peaceful one. At 3 in the morning, when everyone was still asleep, Yun Jian stood up and left the Gu family's villa quietly, coming to the gate that was quite far away from the Gu family's villa. At this time, even the guards at the gate were fast asleep. Yun Jian leaped out of the Gu family's gate easily and went outside. Not long after that, a private helicopter landed on the ground. Yun Jian hopped onto the chopper lightly and it soared into the sky. Sister Jian. The pilot of the helicopter was still in the air when a young girl walked over from the side. It was Qin Yu. Amen, Yun Jian replied and continued, "Are the grenades ready?" "Ready. The grenade that I prepared is powerful enough." It was the organization's newest product. Not only was it powerful, but it could also explode on objects that were prone to exploding. Outsiders would not be able to tell that the explosion was caused by the bomb. "Let's try it out today." Qin Yu nodded at Yun Jian. She was holding a grenade that looked like a miniature bomb in her hand. The grenade was tossed and held in her hand, toying with it. Although this thing was small and no different from a miniature bomb, the gunpowder inside it was more powerful than any bomb. Leaving Wenyu City, Shi Province, Tiger drove a black Bugatti Veyron to the airport where he came from. His hand was on the steering wheel, and his forehead was almost covered with sweat. Outsiders might not know slaying God's temper, but how could he not? Slaying God had never shown mercy to anyone who dared to lay a finger on her. Tiger began to flee with the thought that slaying God would let him go. As the number 2 assassin on the international assassin chart, Tiger was so terrified that his legs were trembling. At the same time, the black Bugatti Veyron was driving on the deserted highway. Looking down from the night sky, one could only see the black Bugatti Veyron speeding across the highway. Apart from that, there was no sound of any other car within the range of the black Bugatti Veyron's headlights. Below the clouds, Yun Jian, who was sitting in the private helicopter, had one hand pressed against the helicopter's window while the other held a pair of binoculars. She watched the black Bugatti Veyron that was fleeing alone on the highway lazily. "Drive lower and descend slowly until you're 50 meters above the car below," Yun Jian said. The pilot did as he was told. Yun Jian still had one hand on the helicopter's window as she narrowed her eyes and watched the fleeing black Bugatti Veyron through the binoculars. It was as if she was in control of everything, as if the entire world was her world. She was the master of everything in this world. Sister Jian, there's a bumpy road at the end of this highway. The car will definitely slow down on the bumpy mountain road, Qin Yu told Yun Jian after a careful inspection. When we passed by the rugged mountainous area and the car started to decelerate, land the helicopter at a height of 30 meters from the car, Yun Jian said softly with a smirk. As she spoke, she put down the binoculars she had been using and went to the helicopter's door to pull it open. At the same time, Tiger saw the rugged highway. His eyes shone with a desire to survive as he stepped on the accelerator and drove the car toward the rugged highway at lightning speed. Slaying God. Don't let him escape from Country Z, or he, Tiger, swore that he would cut Slaying God into pieces. At this moment, the tiger's body had already arrived at the rugged highway. The moment the tiger's car drove over the rugged highway, it didn't slow down at all. Instead, it stepped on the accelerator and rushed over. Almost there. Almost there. As long as he drove past here, Tiger would reach the airport. Even Slaying God would not be able to do anything to him. Just as Tiger's grin widened, thinking that he had escaped Yun Jian's clutches, vroom, vroom, vroom. There was the sound of huge wings flapping. From the rearview mirror, Tiger saw a helicopter descending at a rapid speed. The exterior of the helicopter was engraved with the exclusive skull of Kosha mercenaries. It was, no, 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 no. Tiger slammed on the brakes non-stop. The dignified Tiger on the international ranking list of assassins was actually forced to this extent. Such a scene was seen by the international people. After all, they were shocked on the spot. But at this moment, everything was so smooth and natural. In the helicopter, Yun Jian leaned her hand lazily against the door. The door was already open, but she did not look like she was afraid that she would be flung out of the helicopter. Give me the grenade. Yun Jian stretched her hand out lazily. Qin Yu passed the grenade to Yun Jian. Yun Jian grinned suddenly after taking the grenade. The angle and height where the helicopter was parked were instructed by Yun Jian. Yun Jian knew about this angle and height as well. Tiger, who was sitting in the black Bugatti Veyron, could see Yun Jian, who was standing at the door through the rearview mirror. Yun Jian suddenly extended her hand and bared her teeth. She waved at Tiger, who was sitting in the black Bugatti Veyron, bidding him farewell. Tiger, who saw Yun Jian's gesture, was scared out of his wits. His hands that were steering the black Bugatti Veyron began to slip. Yun Jian's gesture meant that she was bidding him farewell. It was then that Tiger saw Yun Jian biting the grenade open and tossing it toward his black Bugatti Veyron sports car through the rearview mirror. Chapter 22:10. Following Tiger's deafening no, Tiger and his black Bugatti Veyron exploded on the spot. Thankfully, there were no cars nearby. With Tiger and his black Bugatti Veyron as the center point, everything within a 10-meter radius was blown to smithereens by the explosion. Novel, with the dream, WW, Suimeng, La. At the same time, Tiger's indignant and furious roar was drowned out by the explosion. Even in death, Tiger would never forget Yun Jian's smirking face. 5 minutes after the explosion, there was complete silence. The black Bugatti Veyron was so badly damaged that it was unbearable to look at. At the same time, the Tiger's corpse was lying in the black Bugatti Veyron sports car. Even the corpse had been blasted beyond recognition by the power of the explosives. Even the Tiger's corpse was black, as if it had come out of a garbage dump. After checking that Tiger was completely asphyxiated, Yun Jian turned around and walked toward the helicopter. Qin Yu ran over and winked at Yun Jian. How is it? How is it? It's our organization's newest grenade. How's its power? This grenade is light and easy to carry. It looks like a mini bomb, but its power is much greater than the largest grenade. And it's the key point. Under certain circumstances, a car will explode. Therefore, it's an explosive object. With our newest grenade, even an international bomb disposal expert won't be able to tell that the car was blown up by the grenade. Because once it explodes, everything inside and outside will be burned to ashes. It's like the grenade wasn't used. When someone finds out that the car and the people in it are dead tomorrow, they'll only think that the car exploded while driving. No one will guess that it was blown up by a grenade. Qin Yu explained as she surrounded Yun Jian, winking at Yun Jian from time to time. Yun Jian took 2 steps toward the helicopter and stopped abruptly. She looked up and met Qin Yu's eyes. So, you're saying that you made this grenade? Wow, Sister Jian, you're so good. You hit the nail on the head. Qin Yu chuckled and put on a smug expression. What do you think, Sister Jian? Am I awesome? Just praise me, Sister Jian. Quick, praise me. If you praise me, I can laugh for a year. It was not easy for Qin Yu to develop a weapon. She had pestered Yun Jian for so long just to get Yun Jian to praise her. Yun Jian took 2 steps forward. After taking 2 steps, Yun Jian paused and turned around abruptly to glance at Qin Yu from the corner of her eyes. Her pretty lips curled up as she gave the highest compliment, amazing. Qin Yu was mesmerized by her words. Even if Yun Jian suggested that they were going to do something big now, Qin Yu would probably charge forward without hesitation. The next morning, Yun Jian, who had stayed at the Gu family for the night, woke up early. Yun Jian had only slept for 2 hours. She left at 3 in the morning and returned at 4 in the morning. No one in the Gu family knew that Yun Jian had left. Yun Jian pretended that nothing had happened as well. Xiao Jian, you're up. Morning. Yun Yi had just woken up and was about to go for a morning run when she bumped into Yun Jian. Emin, brother, morning. Yun Jian nodded. She was about to walk out of the Gu family's gate. Hey, are you guys going for a morning run too? A voice rang out. It was Gu Zihao. Gu Zihao and his group acted like nothing had happened as they greeted Yun Jian and Yun Yi. Gu Zihao was not a bad person. He was just a little boastful and looked down on girls. Other than his first time, Gu Zihao was quite masculine and righteous. Compared to his sister Gu Ling's narrow-mindedness, it was a stark contrast. Yeah, Yin Yi replied to Gu Zihao. After Qin Yiru came back yesterday, Gu Zihao had asked Yun Yi about Qin Yiru's injury. After that, Gu Zihao told Yun Yi that he had admitted defeat. Initially, he was still a little indignant, thinking that he had lost because he did not make the right move and underestimated Yun Yi. But until now, Gu Zihao had really admitted defeat to Yun Yi. Perhaps this change started after Yun Jian injured Tiger and Bao Lei and even forced Tiger and Bao Lei to retreat. Gu Zihao knew that Yun Yi's skills were taught by Yun Jian. And last night, Yun Jian's performance shocked Gu Zihao. Gu Zihao thought about it. If he had been the person last night, he would not have dared to rush into the old villa to save her. And Yun Jian, Gu Junjian, and Yun Yi had all rushed in as if their lives depended on it. Even when Yun Yi was held back by more than a dozen adults in the end and did not rush in, the way he turned around and rushed in when he found out that his mother was trapped in the old mansion and his younger sister and father rushed in to save her was definitely not a joke. It was all part of a show. And later, when she faced Tiger and Bao Lei, Yun Jian's fearless performance. Disregarding everything else, Yun Jian's aura and her fearless demeanor when she was facing 2 international celebrities was something that Gu Zihao would never be able to emulate even if he wanted to in his lifetime. Then let's go together. Gu Zihao tilted his head and gestured to Yun Yi and Yun Jian. When they came back from their morning run, the Gu family had already started eating. Breakfast was a very nutritious combination of meat and vegetables, with some Westerners' breakfast ingredients in it. As usual, Master Gu was sitting at the head of the table, reading the newspaper and waiting for breakfast to be served one after another. Just as Master Gu was reading the newspaper and everyone in the Gu family was sitting at the table, Master Gu suddenly screamed in horror. He threw away his usual image, and his face was ashen. Dead. Mr. Shermi, no, it should be Tiger, the second on the international ranking of killers. He's dead, eh? Chapter 22:11. At that moment, Yun Jian had just taken her seat with everyone present. Everyone in the Gu family had also taken their seats at this large and long table that could accommodate dozens of people at one time without being crowded. Master Gu was so distraught that he shouted these words at breakfast time without caring about his image. This had never happened before. At that moment, everyone present was stunned when they heard the news of Tiger's death. Hearing this, even Gu Ling, who had been secretly watching Gu Junjian cut a piece of steak from his bowl, suddenly gasped when he was scalded by the cooked steak. After hearing Master Ji's words, Gu Ling shouted in horror, "Dead? Someone died? That person from yesterday died? I remember that person was the culprit behind the kidnapping of that woman. He died, this." The woman was, of course, Qin Yiru. As Gu Ling spoke, he turned his head sideways to glance at Yun Jian. However, he saw Yun Jian calmly cut the steak, chewed it slowly, and swallowed it as if nothing had happened. After hearing Gu Ling's words, she neither admitted nor denied it. However, it was precisely this kind of ambiguous feeling that made everyone present feel an indescribable sense of fear. Was this Yun Jian's doing? Cough, cough, cough. Eat, eat, eat. Master Gu was so engrossed in reading the newspaper that he didn't even realize that his breakfast had been served by the maids. Master Ji's reaction was, of course, because he had expected it. Although Yun Jian didn't kill Tiger in front of everyone, but who knows if she actually went out to kill the tiger last night. Old Master Gu was not a person who was frightened to death. After all, Master Gu was also a veteran who had participated in the anti-Japanese war. It wasn't surprising that he had seen countless people die. However, what shocked Master Gu was that Tiger, who was ranked second on the international ranking of assassins, had been killed. Moreover, the newspaper reported that Tiger's death was caused by a car explosion. But how could it be so coincidental? After Tiger provoked Yun Jian, his hand was crippled and he hurriedly fled the scene, and the car exploded. Bang! Master Gu, who was still thinking about the problem, suddenly snapped back to reality. At this moment, Master Gu was so scared that his entire body trembled. When he came back to his senses, he saw that Yun Jian had already stood up. She smashed her plate on the dining table, deliberately making a loud noise. The steak on the plate had already been finished by Yun Jian. Master Gu, who had suddenly heard the noise, was so frightened that he quickly raised his head to look at Yun Jian. However, he only saw Yun Jian's eyes move slightly, and her sharp eyes met his. Master Gu was so frightened that he swallowed hard. Then, he looked at Yun Jian and said, "You, old man, you don't have to say much. When the fire in the villa was put out yesterday, I already know that you called my father away to ask about the owner of New Cruise. If you want to know about this, why did you call my father away secretly and even scold him for being unfilial? You can just ask me about this. Now, I can clearly tell you that I founded New Cruise single-handedly. The president of New Cruise is my subordinate. Everything that the president of New Cruise who represents the company at events is controlled by me." Yun Jian's words suddenly echoed, and at the same time, it stirred up a wave of emotions in everyone's hearts. Was New Cruise really hers? If Yun Jian had said this yesterday, no one would have believed her. However, after experiencing the series of events last night, no one dared to doubt that Yun Jian was the director of New Cruise. Just as everyone was still in shock, Yun Jian spoke again. "So, if we're talking about family background, it should be the Gu family that's not worthy to speak to someone as noble as my mother. I agree wholeheartedly that my father wants to cut ties with the Gu family." At this point, everyone was shocked again. However, that was not the end of it. Just as everyone calmed down from their shock, another wave swept over them. Meeting old man Ji's eyes in front of everyone, Yun Jian suddenly grinned as her eyes flickered and the corners of her lips curled up as she said, "You're right. Also, I don't mind telling you that I did kill Tiger with a grenade." Chapter 22:12. Before Yun Jian could react, Ce pressed her against the door and kissed her wildly. By then, her top had already disappeared. Ce was really impatient. After he took off her clothes, he didn't even wait to carry her to the bed. He pressed her against the door and, Gidge. Sister. Lansu, Gidge asked us to invite you guys to go to the fireworks event. It's so fun. There's so much fun. This chapter is not authorized and cannot be read in green for the time being. If you support the author, please go to the official website to pay for reading. Chapter 22:13. The sudden appearance of Adam caused Lan Su's heart to jump in shock. Even the cup of malatang in his hand slipped due to Adam's roar, causing the scalding hot soup to spill out of the cup and onto his hand. Woo, mama, mama. Zhou Ran saw that Lan Su was scalded by the cup of malatang and was so scared that he started crying loudly. Lan Su was still unable to react for a moment. Her hand was scalded by the malatang. This chapter is not authorized and cannot be read in green for the time being. To support the author, please go to the official website to pay for reading. Chapter 22:14. As soon as Zhou Ran started crying, Lan Su glared fiercely at Adam. Then, she took the little cutie Zhou Ran from Adam's arms. She even handed the mala soup to Adam so that he could help her get it. In the end, the bowl of spicy soup was in Adam's hands and he had to feed Lan Su. Qin Yu and Yun Yi were considered a passionate couple. The way they interacted with each other was no different from a normal couple. The only difference was that Qin Yu would not act coquettishly and would use poison the moment she attacked. Mo Sen, on the other hand, was very serious. He brought Rockberry around and did not do anything shameful. Luo Mei was also a young lady from a wealthy family. She blushed and followed Mo Sen all the way. At the same time, in Country R, Sacred Hot Spring Hotel. Ever since Yi Ling left home to travel with Lin Wei would bring her around the world from time to time from an Hun group. Sometimes, Lin Wei would bring Yi Ling along to deal with an Hun group's matters. Today, Lin Wei brought her to Country R for a vacation after dealing with an Hun group's matters. Country R was one of the most typical volcanic countries in the world. Hence, there were many hot springs produced by geothermal energy. There were more than 3,000 hot springs with accommodation and this number was constantly increasing. Hot springs had become an indispensable part of Country R's life. Therefore, Country R's hot springs were very famous. At the same time, Yi Ling was soaking in a hot spring hotel in Country R. Lin Wei had booked all the hot springs in this hotel, so inside and outside, even the hotel owner was nowhere to be seen. Yi Ling was soaking in the open-air hot spring, soaking her mouth in the hot spring as her imagination ran wild. Ever since her mother, Ji Qin, said that she wanted her to leave Lin Wei's side and Lin Wei took her in a fit of anger, Lin Wei did not touch her even after Yi Ling and Lin Wei had been out for so long. When they came out together and stayed in the hotel, Lin Wei asked for two rooms next to each other. He did not even stay in the same room, let alone any other intimate actions. Love came too quickly. Yi Ling realized that she had unknowingly fallen in love with Lin Wei. Hence, Yi Ling really hoped that something would happen now. Lin Wei was currently in the hot spring next to Yi Ling's. There were only a few large rocks in the middle, and there was nothing else. The surroundings were very quiet because the guests and even the owner of the restaurant had been driven away by Lin Wei. Yi Ling felt that she had to breathe a little harder. Even Lin Wei, who was next door, could hear her. Therefore, Yi Ling subconsciously lowered her breathing. About 10 minutes later, Yi Ling stood up from the hot spring. He had soaked in the water for long enough. It was time to go back. However, as soon as Yi Ling stood up, she slipped and fell into the hot spring because she was still thinking about something. Ah! The moment before her entire body was buried in the hot spring, Yi Ling involuntarily screamed in fright. With that, Yi Ling's entire body slid into the hot spring that was as high as a person's chest. Not long after the scream, before Yi Ling tried to stand up, she saw someone enter the hot spring and pull her out. Yi Ling had a false alarm. She almost became the first person to choke to death in the not-so-deep hot spring. By the time Yiling regained her senses, she was already naked in Lin Wei's arms. Similarly, he was also naked. Yiling was shocked. She was so scared that she quickly pushed Lin Wei. "I'm fine, but I'm not." Lin Wei still spoke in his deep male voice. When these words rang out, across the water, Yiling could even feel a certain part of Lin Wei's body swelling. However, in the next second, Lin Wei picked up Yiling and walked out of the hot spring with the advantage of his long legs. Then, he picked up the bathrobe and draped it over the two of them before walking towards the hotel room. "Then let's have a baby, eh?" Chapter 22:17. The sweeping auntie stood further away, so she could only see two dark figures standing under the bridge. As Yun Jian was pressed against the wall under the bridge, a ray of light shone on Yun Jian's head from not far away. She could see that she was a teenage girl with delicate skin. Ce had one hand behind Yun Jian's head as a pillow. Ce was afraid that the kiss would be too intense. He didn't want Yun Jian's head to be rubbed against the wall under the bridge, so he placed his hand there as a pillow. However, from the sweeping auntie's perspective, it looked like Yun Jian was being forced by Ce to be raped under the bridge. Especially since Ce was standing in a blind spot, the sweeping auntie thought that it was a boorish man pressing down on Yun Jian. That was why she cried out in surprise. Yun Jian was a teenage girl, yet she was being molested by such a wretched man. Did she still want to get married? The sweeping auntie yelled almost instantly. She gathered many people around her and rushed to the bottom of the bridge. At that moment, Ce's slender fingers were stroking Yun Jian's hair. His sharp black eyes were staring at Yun Jian. He only had eyes for her. The sweeping auntie quickly gathered a large group of people and rushed to the bottom of the bridge with brooms and mops. Some people wanted to rush up and beat Ce up to save Yun Jian from Ce. A torchlight shone down and shone on Yun Jian and Ce. At that moment, everyone who thought that Yun Jian was being bullied by the boorish man was stunned. This. Even the sweeping auntie was stunned. Her face was filled with disbelief. Was this a young couple flirting with each other? She originally thought that the man was a wretched man, but upon closer inspection, she realized that the man was really handsome. This was a handsome man and a beautiful woman. In the end, the cleaning lady and her group left the scene awkwardly. They all tacitly agreed not to say anything. It was Yun Jian's first time encountering something like this. She tugged at the corner of her lips, looking awkward as well. Ce, on the other hand, had a contented look on his face as he held her little hand and found Xiao Yunju and the others. Then, they headed back home. At this time, Qin Yiru's dishes were already on the table. Seeing Ce and Yun Jian coming back, Qin Yiru waved to Ce and Yun Jian, saying, "Wash your hands, it's time to eat." "By the way, why haven't they come back yet?" "We just separated." "They should be back soon," Yun Jian replied. "The dishes will get cold later." "Xiao Jian, call them one by one to urge them." Qin Yiru nodded and said as she placed the bowls and chopsticks on the table. Just as Yun Jian was about to take out her phone, Yun Yi, Qin Yu, and Adam had all come back. At this time, everyone was sitting around the table and eating. Qin Yiru cooked a sumptuous feast tonight as a celebration of New Year's Day. New Year's Day was considered a small new year. Although Lunar New Year had yet to arrive and Country Z's official New Year's Day had yet to arrive, people in Western countries had already started celebrating. At the dining table, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya were competing to see who could eat the fastest and the most. Lan Su, on the other hand, was helping Zhou Yiran, who was eating while picking up the rice grains that accidentally stuck to his face and feeding him with a spoon from time to time. Adam, who was beside them, picked up his chopsticks to feed himself intermittently, but his eyes were glued to Lan Su and Zhou Yiran. He looked like he wished he could become Zhou Yiran and snuggle in Lan Su's arms. "Mommy, I want to eat that. Prawns. Mommy, feed me. Zhou Yiran waved his hands and started to act shamelessly. Okay. Hearing this, Lan Su reached out and picked up a big prawn. She peeled off the shell with her clean hands and fed it to Zhou-Yiran. Zhou-Yiran's big eyes narrowed into slits as he ate, his gaze filled with envy. Mommy's the best. Zhou-Yiran hugged Lan Su happily and rubbed his head against Lan Su's chest. Where are you going, you brat? Do you believe that I'll make you scram out to pick up trash? Seeing this, Adam, who had been watching from the side, finally couldn't hold it in anymore and stood up to roar at Zhou-Yiran. With this roar, Zhou-Yiran was so scared that he leaned even closer to Lan Su. He even stuck close to Lan Su's chest and looked at Adam with a guarded expression. Daddy's strange again. Mommy's strange again. Woo-woo. I'm so scared, woo-woo. What are you doing? Are you crazy? If you go crazy again, I'll make you sleep on the floor tonight. Lan Su glared fiercely at Adam, then coaxed the pitiful Zhou-Yiran in her arms. Everyone saw that Zhou-Yiran had a look of success on his face. He cupped the side of his mother Lan Su's face and smacked his lips. Mommy's the best. Seeing this scene, Adam was once again enraged. This brat, sooner or later I'll stuff him back into his mother's womb. Seeing this scene, Si Yi's eyes darkened. He lowered his head slightly and suddenly whispered into Yunjian's ear in a voice that only the two of them could hear. I won't have children for the time being. Yunjian, who suddenly heard this, raised her eyes and was stunned. What kind of indescribable thing did he think of just now? However, before Yunjian could finish thinking, Adam suddenly scratched his head as if he had thought of something. He changed his mood and said, Oh right, I just heard something at the market. I'll tell you Lele, haha. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 22:18. Page 1/1. Adam did not stop talking as if he was trying to understand the anger he felt from Zhou-Yiran. Instead, he started talking even more exaggeratedly. I heard that a cleaning auntie saw them and thought that a young lady was being raped by a perverted man. She quickly brought a group of people to save her. Who would have thought that it was a young couple, haha. I heard that the young couple was not bad looking. They actually had sex under the bridge where so many people could pass by. I heard that someone even saw them taking off their clothes. Adam was really shooting his mouth off. However, the children present did not understand what he was saying. Xiao Yunju and the other two only cared about eating faster, so Adam shooting his mouth off was not a big deal. However, the person that Adam was shooting his mouth off to was, Adam, from tomorrow onwards, go complete the organization's 3S level training in the Amazon forest. You're not allowed to come back until you're done. Before Adam could finish joking around, Si Yi's words suddenly rang out. Adam's mischievous smile instantly froze. He stared blankly at Si Yi and stopped what he was saying. Huh? Young master, why? Why would he be sent to complete the organization's 3S level training in the Amazon forest? One had to know that even Lin Wei had to spend 2 months to complete the most difficult 3S level special training in the organization. Him? Ha! That would take at least half a year to complete. Even if he was faster, he would still need 5 months. No, young master, why did you send me to the Amazon forest to complete the organization's 3S level of difficulty special training for no reason? What did I do? The young couple that we were talking about wasn't you and young master. Just as Adam spoke up to this point, he suddenly stopped. Thinking back to what he said just now, Si Yi suddenly looked angry. Could it be, the couple having sex under the bridge, could it be? Adam was not stupid and immediately thought of this. He suddenly stopped and looked up at Si Yi. Cough cough cough. Young master, that. I didn't say anything, so please don't send me to that damned Amazon forest. Otherwise, Mo-san will miss me so much that he won't be able to eat or sleep peacefully, right Mo-san? Adam squeezed his eyebrows at Mo-san, looking like he was asking Mo-san for help. Unexpectedly, Mo-san calmly responded, it has nothing to do with me. Adam. F***ck, how can there be such a scam? Although CE didn't really send Adam to the Amazon forest in the end, Adam fought with Zhou Yiran for Lan Su. In the end, not only did Zhou Yiran scratch his handsome face with his long fingernails, he was also punished by Lan Su to sleep on the floor. He couldn't sleep the entire night. Holy Land Hot Spring Hotel and Country R. It was not until the wee hours of the morning that Yi Ling, who had been released by Lin Wei, nestled in the warm blanket. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. Lin Wei was taking a shower. Although this was not their first time, Yi Ling still buried herself in the blanket shyly, not daring to raise her head. "Do you want to take a shower?" 3 minutes later, the sound of running water in the bathroom stopped. Yi Ling then heard a mellow voice from above the white blanket that covered her head. Needless to say, it was definitely him. Yi Ling nodded carefully and got up. Just as she was about to put on her clothes, Lin Wei grabbed her hand and pulled her out of the blanket. Yi Ling was so embarrassed that she wanted to find something to cover herself with. However, when she raised her head, she saw Lin Wei staring at her. She wanted to pull her hand away from Lin Wei's hand and said weakly, "I'll do it myself, take a shower later." Just as Yi Ling finished speaking, Lin Wei looked at her and suddenly said this. After he finished speaking, before Yi Ling could react to what Lin Wei meant, he had already used his height advantage and strength advantage to push her towards the edge of the bed. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 22:19. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Yi Ling had sex with Lin Wei 7 times in one night. Once the 2-day New Year's Day holiday was over, it was the second day of the holiday. On the third day of the holiday, most people had already returned to their normal lives. Other than elementary school, junior high and high school students would return to school for self-study on the third day of the holiday. The university holidays were not over yet, but classes would start immediately after New Year's Day. Most university students came from all over the country and would only go home during the short break. Classes would start 3 days after New Year's Day and most students would return to school on the third day of the holiday. Unlike junior high and high school, university students spent most of their time in their dorms, so it did not matter if they went to school or not. Other than winter and summer vacations, it was fine even if one did not go home during the weekend or short break. The dorm was home. On the third day of New Year's Day, Yun Jian rushed back to River City University of Electronic Science and Technology of China from Longmen City early in the morning. Today was not only the third day of the holiday but also the day when Rongyao Company sent out invitations to the big shots from all over the world for a gathering in River City. It was also the time for Yun Jian to eradicate Reverse Emperor once and for all. CE returned to Anhun after confirming that Yun Jian could handle Reverse Emperor alone. He knew that his Xiao Jian did not want to rely on anyone unless it was absolutely necessary. It was not that she did not trust him but Yun Jian's confidence. Just as she returned to the dorm, she caught a whiff of cigarette smoke. It was Miao Li and Shi Xiujuan who were smoking and making the dorm smoky. Both of them frowned when they saw Yun Jian coming in. Once they thought of Song Yu and Mo Lianhua going against Yun Jian, Miao Li and Shi Xiujuan extinguished their cigarettes quickly and opened the windows to get some fresh air, not daring to smoke anymore. There was no doubt that the current Yun Jian was even scarier than a smoking addict in their eyes. Fortunately, Yun Jian placed her belongings in the dormitory, turned around, and walked out of the door. Seeing this, Miao Li and Shi Xiujuan heaved a sigh of relief. After leaving the dorm, Yun Jian met up with Gue Yan and Gue Yan, who had been staying in Rivertown for 3 months, at a coffee shop. Among the 3 leaders of the Kosha mercenaries, Diani, the leader of the intelligence team, had already listened to Yun Jian and returned to the Kosha mercenaries 3 months ago to await orders. As for the leader of the assassination team, Ghost Flame, and the leader of the investigation team, Ghost Lien, they stayed in Jiangxing City for 3 months. The 3 of them met at a coffee shop and ordered 3 cups of coffee. Yun Jian sat on one side while Gue Yan and Gue Lien sat opposite Yun Jian. The three of them sat facing each other. Sister Jian. Gue Yen and Gue Lian called out to Yun Jian. And Yun Jian nodded and asked, Gue Yen, are all the members of the assassination team here except for one team who's stronger? They're here, waiting for orders. Gue Yen lowered his head and nodded at Yun Jian. All right. Gather everyone at the hotel where the banquet is being held tonight. Arrange for snipers to be stationed there. Don't let a single one of them escape. Understood. Gue Yen nodded. Gue Lian, assist Gue Yen from the side. It's up to you whether we can annihilate Reverse Emperor tonight, Yun Jian said and stood up to leave without even touching the coffee in front of her. Gue Yen and Gue Lian heard what Yun Jian said as well. As for Yun Jian, she walked out as if she did not talk to Gue Yen and Gue Lian at all. Tonight was the banquet organized by Rongyao Company for international moguls, businessmen, and politicians to mingle. She, on the other hand, had other plans. Turning a corner, Yun Jian was about to head toward the martial arts club when she bumped into a group of people. Yun Jian was going to sidestep when a surprised female voice rang out. It's you. Yun Jian raised a brow at the voice and looked up, only to meet Jian Ning's eyes. Jian Ning was the girl Yun Jian met on the plane when she came back from Deity Continent. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 22-20. Page 1/1. Surprising things always came so suddenly. Yun Jian had decided to study at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China because she had met a girl on the flight back to Longmen City from God Mainland and the hunting school. The girl had said that she wanted to study computer science at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. Yun Jian had learned about the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China from the girl. Yun Jian had also come to the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. Coincidentally, it was a pity that Yun Jian had not met Jian Ning, who had said that she wanted to study at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. Perhaps she was not coming again. Yun Jian did not think much of it. She had just turned the corner and exited the cafe when she bumped into Jian Ning again. Yun Jian blinked in surprise but did not say a word. What a coincidence. Why are you in Rivertown too? There were a few boys and girls with Jian Ning, looking like they had come out to play with her. Jian Ning hopped in front of Yun Jian and reached out to hold Yun Jian's hand, looking like she had bumped into an old friend. I'm studying at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China, Yun Jian said. Jian Ning was stunned for a moment before she was overjoyed. You're studying at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China too? Haha. That's great. I just came here 2 days ago. I fell a few months ago and stayed at home to recuperate before coming here. I thought I'd never see you again. I didn't expect you to be studying at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China too. I'm so happy. Jian Ning's joyful expression did not seem to be an act. Jian Ning, this junior is. Just as Jian Ning was about to jump up in excitement from holding Yun Jian's hand, a tall and thin boy with a crew cut standing behind her asked. Hey. I forgot to introduce her in my excitement. She's a friend I met on the flight back to China. It's a pity that I didn't get to exchange phone numbers or something back then. Thankfully, we meet again. She's Yun Jian, heh. Jian Ning said to the boy with a crew cut. She then turned to point at the tall and thin boy with a crew cut who was rather attractive to girls and introduced him to Yun Jian. This is my senior brother, Zhang Xiaoyu. We were in the same high school when we were overseas. We came back to study together and we met again. Jian Ning introduced Zhang Xiaoyu, who nodded at Yun Jian in a friendly manner and said, Hello, junior. Zhang Xiaoyu belonged to the kind of senior who was more gentle, mature and steady. He gave people a sense of security. Let's introduce ourselves. My name is Malefo, not the Maitreya Buddha you're thinking of. I'm cultured. A boy standing next to Zhang Xiaoyu touched his hairless head and smiled righteously. Come on, you're still saying you're not Maitreya. You look just like Maitreya without any hair. But Maitreya is a Buddha, the Supreme One. What about you? You're a fake. Standing next to the boy named Milfo was a girl wearing a cute top and a white pleated skirt. The girl retorted, then looked at Yun Jian with a smile and introduced herself. My name is Zhang Jingjing, Zhang as in new, and Jing as in Jingjing. What's the difference between that and not introducing at all? Milfo glared at Zhang Jingjing. At the same time, Yun Jian was standing in front of the group. After listening to their conversation, she narrowed her eyes with a small smile. Yun Jian. That was the end of the introduction. Just as everyone was talking, a boy ran over from the side. He was obviously with Zhang Xiaoyu and the others. At this moment, the boy ran over and said mysteriously to Jian Ning and the others, I've heard about it. Haha. The multinational Rongyao company is really going to invite all the international big shots to a hotel here today. It's a grand occasion, let's go and take a look. I heard that a lot of international big shots will come. Those international big shots are all the top existences in the world. Top reading site, M. Chapter 22-21. Page 1/1. After the boy who suddenly ran back said these words mysteriously, he suddenly looked left and right a few times. Then, he moved in front of the crowd and said mysteriously, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I heard that not only will the international bigwigs and politicians come, but even some of the international assassins and secret agents, and some legendary assassin organizations will come. Are you sure you don't want to go and have a look? If you don't want to go, I'll go by myself. The boy who ran back halfway was called Qin Dasun. It was a very old-fashioned name, but he looked very cute and was a mischievous boy. The fact that Qin Dasun had such a name proved that his parents were definitely not from the city. That was indeed the case. Qin Dasun was not born into a rich family. He came from a very simple background, and he was a child from the countryside. Jian Ning, Zhang Xiaoyu, Malefo, and Zhang Jingjing all had good family backgrounds. Qin Dasun was the only one who was born in the countryside. However, the reason why the five of them could play together was that they would not look down on Qin Dasun just because of his low status. There was no hierarchy among the five of them. They were all friends, and friends should be honest with each other. Lulu Dasun, you're still so nosy. Let's not get involved in that kind of thing. Also, if some assassins or secret agents really come, what if we get implicated and die? Zhang Jingjing said to Qin Dasun with her nickname. Then, she reached out and touched Qin Dashuan's head, and said a few words with a smile. Don't you still have me? Besides, aren't you guys interested? It's an international party. I heard that many people are racking their brains to get an invitation from the Rongyao company to attend this party. I thought that with your status, it shouldn't be difficult to get an invitation from the Rongyao company, right? Then, bring me in to have a look and broaden my horizons. Qin Dasun said to the crowd. After he finished speaking, he glanced at Yun Jian. Pausing, Qin Dasun glanced at Yun Jian and asked, she's my friend. Her name is Yun Jian. Speaking of which, Qin Dasun, you want to go to such a dangerous place and use us as scapegoats? Let's attack together and teach Qin Dasun a lesson. Jian Ning took the opportunity to introduce Qin Dasun. Then, she rolled up her sleeves and looked like she was going to give Qin Dasun a good beating. Oh, no, no, no. No, no, no. I was wrong. Qin Dasun immediately cowered. He covered his head and hid to the side. Yun Jian, who was standing at the side, blinked. Jian Ning laughed and said to Yun Jian, he's just like that. Don't mind him. Although Jian Ning and the others liked to tease each other, it was not hard to see that their relationship was very good. After finding a place to have a cup of tea with Jian Ning and the others, and exchanging contact information, Yun Jian left. Yun Jian didn't go back to her dormitory. Instead, she went straight to the martial arts club. As soon as he entered the martial arts club, he saw a girl standing in front of the members. He took a closer look. Wasn't this girl Kai Huiling? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. She didn't know why Kai Huiling had come back after leaving the martial arts club. At this time, Kai Huiling took out 5 pieces of paper in front of Yun Jian. Then, she showed them in front of everyone. Before she spoke, she glanced at Yun Jian provocatively. This is an invitation from Rongyao Company. It's the party held by Rongyao Company in Jiangxing City tonight. Many international tycoons will come. I have 6 in total. I have 1 for myself and 5 for the others. After all, I used to be in your martial arts club, so I'll give the other 5 to you. Who wants them? Top reading website, M. Chapter 22. When they heard Kai Huiling say that she had an invitation from Rongyao Company in her hand, they knew that she could attend the gala that was going to be held in Jiangxing City tonight. Everyone in the martial arts club was in an uproar. Before Yun Jian joined the martial arts club, Kai Huiling was doing well in the martial arts club and was friends with many people. Although what Kai Huiling said before she left the club was unpleasant to hear, she was still an old friend who had been together for a long time. Everyone present had some feelings for Kai Huiling. Now that Kai Huiling had come to the martial arts club and brought 5 invitations to everyone was excited. Senior Huiling, I want it. Give me the invitation. I also want an invitation. Let's go and see the scene where Rongyao Company invited the international bigwigs tonight. Can you give me one? Regardless of whether they were boys or girls, after hearing Kai Huiling's words, they all shouted excitedly. Everyone present knew how rare the invitation was for Rongyao Company's gala tonight. It was said that if one wanted to get an invitation from Rongyao Company, one had to be a wealthy person with a net worth of 100 million yuan. There were even people who auctioned the invitation from Rongyao Company. One invitation could be sold at a sky-high price of 100,000 yuan. This 100,000 yuan was just to witness the grand scene. When the news came out, many people were shocked. And the most sensational thing in Jiangxing City was the gala where Rongyao Company invited the international bigwigs. As for tonight's gala, there were few people in Jiangxing City who didn't want to go. It was something that couldn't be asked for. Now Kai Huiling actually said that she had 6 invitations in her hand. One had to know that even with Mo Buffon's family background, he couldn't get an invitation from Rongyao Company. How did Kai Huiling get it? Feeling everyone's envious and eager eyes, Kai Huiling raised her head proudly and glanced at Yun Jian again. After making a fool of herself in front of Yun Jian at the New Year's gala last time, Kai Huiling had been avoiding Yun Jian these days. After all, it was a very embarrassing thing. Kai Huiling would not appear in front of Yun Jian as long as she made a fool of herself. However, she liked to show off in front of Yun Jian whenever she got something amazing. As a matter of fact, he received 6 invitations from Rongyao Company today and immediately went to the Wushu Club to show off. At that time, Kai Huiling originally thought that she would see envy on Yun Jian's face. However, what Kai Huiling didn't expect was that Yun Jian just carried her small backpack and walked to the side. She put the small backpack on a clean table in the martial arts club without any expression. Kai Huiling's purpose in coming to the Martial Arts Society today was to give Mo Buffon a copy of the Rongyao Company's invitation letter that she received. She wanted Mo Buffon to attend the evening party with her, so as to improve their relationship. Secondly, she wanted to show off in front of Yun Jian. However, seeing that Yun Jian was ignoring her now, Kai Huiling was too lazy to care about the expectant gazes of the members of the Yuan Martial Arts Society. She carefully held her 5 invitations from Rongyao Company and walked in front of Yun Jian. She blocked Yun Jian and said arrogantly, "Hey, don't you want it? This is an invitation letter from Rongyao Company. One is worth thousands of dollars. I have 5 of them here. Plus my own one, there are 6 in total." Seeing Kai Huiling blocking in front of her, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and said softly, "An invitation letter from Rongyao Company?" "Yes. It's genuine. People like you will never get an invitation letter from Rongyao Company. I heard that the market price of one invitation letter can be sold for a sky-high price of $100,000. Kai Huiling raised her head proudly and said, "Oh." Yun Jian smiled coldly. Kai Huiling thought that Yun Jian was aware of her prowess, so she glanced at the ceiling again smugly. Just when Kai Huiling thought that Yun Jian would be shocked by her action, the latter took out a stack of 100 invitations from Rong and Yao from her bag and placed them on the table. She looked up and narrowed her eyes as she said, "I'm sorry, Yun Jian, but I'm sorry. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 22-23. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Seeing Kai Huiling standing in front of Yun Jian, everyone in the martial arts society knew what Kai Huiling was trying to do. After all, Kai Huiling left the martial arts society because of Yun Jian. But to everyone's surprise, Kai Huiling took out 6 invitation letters from the Rongyao company in one go. Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. Yun Jian, on the other hand, had taken out a stack of invitation cards that was as thick as 100 from her backpack. These invitation letters were sent out in the name of the Rongyao company to all the big shots in the world. Not everyone could get one. And some people would even spend 100,000 RMB just to get one. Just to get into the party and see the world. Such invitation letters were like a piece of gold in the hands of others. Even if there was only one, they would hold it tightly in their hands. But what about Yun Jian? She actually took out 100 invitation letters from her backpack. These invitation letters had the exclusive seal of the Rongyao company, confirming that they were genuine invitation letters from the Rongyao company. And Yun Jian also said that she had a box of them at home. Just one of these invitation letters would be bought at a sky-high price. Yun Jian had a box of them at home? No, no, no. Impossible. How could you have them? These 6 notes in my hand were all obtained by my dad using his connections for 500,000 RMB in exchange for 3 months. How could you possibly have so many? Even if it's someone from the Rongyao company, it's impossible for them to get so many invitation letters. Kai Huiling, who wanted to show off in front of Yun Jian and look at Yun Jian with disdain, instantly darkened her face. Her face turned pale and weak. How could she have so many invitation letters? These invitation letters, I'll give them to you. It was then that Yun Jian placed the nearly 100 invitations in front of the martial arts club members, looking like she did not care about the invitations that were considered rare treasures to outsiders. Hearing Yun Jian's words, everyone in the martial arts society was stunned. In the next second, they rushed up and fought for the invitation letters. One letter was worth a sky-high price. After everyone had divided the invitation letters, they all thanked Yun Jian loudly and started discussing. "Thank you, President. The president of our martial arts society is indeed different. It's hard to get an invitation letter, but the president has a whole bunch." "That's right. It's our honor to have the president as the president of our martial arts society." These words reached Kai Huiling's ears one after another, causing Kai Huiling's expression to change drastically. She originally wanted to prove that Yun Jian was inferior to her. Yun was not suitable to be the president of the martial arts society. But in the end, it was exactly the opposite. Most importantly, what Yun Jian did just now made Kai Huiling flaunting her invitations in front of the crowd right after she took them out. It was such a foolish thing to do. To have so many invitation letters from Rongyao company, maybe she slept with a senior executive of Rongyao company. Yun Jian, just you wait. One day, she, Kai Huiling, would make Yun Jian get out of the martial arts society. Kai Huiling was so angry that she cursed Yun Jian in a low voice. Then she turned around and hurried out of the martial arts society. When she walked to the gate, she accidentally tripped on the threshold and almost fell to the ground. That wretched appearance almost made people laugh out loud. It wasn't until Kai Huiling completely walked out of the martial arts society that Yun Jian raised her eyes and narrowed them slightly. Then she glanced at the audience and said indifferently to everyone in the martial arts society, "With this invitation letter, you can enter the party. You can also give the rest of the invitation letters to your relatives and friends. But remember, the party starts at 6 o'clock. You are only allowed to stay for an hour in the middle. You must leave the party at 7 o'clock. Don't ask for the reason. Remember this, or you won't be able to leave after 7 o'clock. Top reading website, M. Chapter 22-24. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. When the members of the martial arts club heard Yun Jian's words, they all nodded in agreement, even though they didn't know what Yun Jian meant. Staying for an hour at a party like that is something I've never dreamed of. Don't worry, I'll definitely leave at 7 o'clock. Me too. That's right. President, you don't have to explain. Whatever the president says is what it is. We just have to do as you say. When the members of the martial arts club heard Yun Jian's words, they all spoke in unison. In response, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and finally calmed down. The morning passed just like that. The sky in Jiangxing City was still as clear as ever, and the streets were still as noisy as ever. But all of this was like the eve of a storm. Yun Jian had just come out of the martial arts club and was walking in the direction of the dormitory building when she suddenly saw a large group of people crowding around her female dormitory building. They were clamoring to enter the female dormitory building. And this group of people had microphones in their hands, pushing and shoving as they tried to squeeze into Yun Jian's female dormitory building. However, they were stopped in front of the female dormitory building's entrance by the dormitory manager and the teachers who had arrived later. There were also a few men carrying imported video cameras filming by the side. Seeing this scene, it was not difficult to guess that the group of men and women who were pushing and shoving to squeeze into the female dormitory building with microphones in their hands were the news reporters of various major media outlets. In Country Z in 2003, news reporters were already popular. But compared to now, the news reporters at that time were interviewing people through cameras or live broadcasts, and the images were far from as clear as now. Most of the cameras were imported from overseas, and the country did not have the technology to manufacture cameras of standard quality. As for news reporters, as long as one was an individual, they knew that their job was to interview people. However, the people they wanted to interview naturally had to be different or stand out from the crowd. Whether it was interviewing a person or an event, this person or event had to be extraordinary. The more eye-catching it was, the better it would be. To put it simply, this meant that wherever there was a strange person or event, these news reporters would rush there. For example, a person was born with 6 fingers, or a person who had lived in a cave for decades and became a savage. These kinds of reports were all dug out by the news reporters. Then, they would describe it a little more exaggeratedly and write an eye-catching headline. Once it was published in the newspaper, the news reporter's income would also be rewarded by the company as a commission. Therefore, these news reporters could be said that in order to get some headlines for the news. Just like now, the translation. The dormitory manager and the dormitory managers, and it was useless even when the dormitory manager and the dormitory manager ants and they were blocked by the dormitory manager and the teachers, it was useless, they were even when the dormitory manager and. I heard that 2 days ago, there was a girl from your school who rushed onto the stage in the middle of her performance at the New Year's Eve party. She did more than 10 somersaults in one breath and shocked everyone. That girl should be staying in this dormitory building, right? Translation. I can translation to can I? This question came from a female reporter. That girl rushed onto the stage in the middle of her New Year's Day performance. Coincidentally, someone brought a camera and recorded the whole process of her rushing onto the stage and somersaulting. Can you let us interview her about how she trained to be so good? I only need 10 minutes. I'll take up 10 minutes of that girl's time. This group of reporters held their microphones and pushed each other, trying to squeeze into the female dormitory building. The grand scene was something that had never happened before in the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. Regarding this, the students passing by the school couldn't help but stop and look at the scene in front of them, as if they were wondering what had happened here. Our school has the right to protect the personal safety of our students. Please go back. A group of teachers blocked the reporters who wanted to rush into the female dormitory building and said this very solemnly. It turned out that Yun Jian had rushed onto the stage in front of everyone during her New Year's Day performance. She had done more than 10 somersaulting moves that didn't suit her age. Coincidentally, someone had brought a camera from home to record it. In this era, mobile phones couldn't record, and only a few people had cameras. This was because it was a high-end gadget that had to be imported from abroad. After that video was seen by the news media reporters, they all rushed here, wanting to interview Yun Jian. After all, there hadn't been any big news for a long time. Now that they suddenly caught this big news, this group of reporters certainly wouldn't let it go. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Naturally, she didn't like to be interviewed. She took a detour and was about to take a detour and climb up the wall from the back of the female dormitory building. Suddenly, someone saw her and pointed at her back as she was about to leave. She. It's that girl. She's the girl who did more than 10 somersaulting in the martial arts performance that night. Top reading website, M. Chapter 22-25. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Yun Jian didn't want to cause any trouble, so she left quietly. To some people, being interviewed by reporters was an honor that others couldn't even dream of. But Yun Jian didn't like this kind of empty honor, and she didn't like to expose herself in front of so many people. Who knew that when Yun Jian wanted to climb the wall from the back of the girls' dormitory to her room, she was pointed out and exposed before she could do anything. At this time, the group of reporters who were waiting for Yun Jian to come from the girls' dormitory turned around like zombies who smelled the scent of humans. In the next second, the group of reporters all rushed towards Yun Jian. Even the people who were carrying cameras on their shoulders followed the reporters and ran towards Yun Jian. For a moment, all the attention and cameras were all focused on Yun Jian. Those who didn't know would think that a celebrity had come. It was good to be a celebrity. Being chased by millions of fans would raise their status and be envied by everyone. It was as if they were born to be superior to others. But if one day you really became a public figure and were chased by all the fans to the point that you were like a god, people would want to take off your underwear no matter what color you were wearing. What pinhole camera? Maybe when you were unconsciously changing your clothes, the whole process would be recorded. Although that kind of life was high and mighty, she wouldn't even be able to experience the life of an ordinary person. Her entire body was exposed in front of everyone. This was what it meant to be a celebrity. And Yun Jian didn't like this kind of feeling. Therefore, when these crazy reporters with microphones and cameras chased after her, she frowned slightly. In spite of it, there was no way the reporters would give in for a headline like this. All of them squeezed their way over and did not even care if Yun Jian was willing to do so as they rushed forward with their microphones in hand to ask questions. Hello. May I ask if you're the female student who stood out in the martial arts performance at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China's New Year's Eve party? It's said that you ended your performance with a dozen somersaults at the end of the martial arts performance and won first place in the school's New Year's Eve party. Then, may I ask how a teenage girl like you managed to practice such skills? An old-fashioned female reporter held the microphone in front of Yun Jian's mouth and used a very coherent and experienced sentence to ask the question. But before this female reporter finished her sentence, she was pushed by another female reporter and then passed the microphone in front of Yun Jian. Hello student, after watching the recording of your somersaults, I would like to ask you a few questions. Excuse me, where did you learn all these skills? May I ask how many years did it take for you to learn them? Can you tell me who is your master? Do you have any plans in the future in the martial arts industry? Also, you were originally a computer science major. Since you've learned such skills, why don't you go to a martial arts academy to further your studies? This group of reporters was like a continuous firing of cannons. The questions that came out of their mouths couldn't stop. This made Yun Jian's brows furrow even more. Although this group of reporters spoke to Yun Jian in a polite tone like, "May I ask," and "Hello," their behavior was extremely disgusting. It was as if they wanted to dig out all 18 generations of Yun Jian's ancestors. Many students from the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China stood around and watched. There was also a group of helpless teachers. But everyone felt that being interviewed by reporters was a matter of high opinion, so Yun Jian should answer these reporters' questions one by one with a smile. But just as everyone thought so, Yun Jian's cold eyes slanted. Two indifferent, simple, and plain words suddenly jumped out of her mouth: move. Top reading website, M. Chapter 22-26. If it were any other girl who was surrounded by so many reporters like a superstar, she would have been smug by now. However, after Yun Jian was surrounded, her cold face was devoid of any color. Contrary to what everyone thought, she only said those two words in an extremely flat tone. Moreover, those two words, which were so simple that it made people's expressions freeze, gave everyone present a hair-raising illusion for some reason. All the reporters, including the students from the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China who were passing by, as well as the dormitory manager and the teachers who had rushed over, were all stunned on the spot. They looked at Yun Jian in disbelief. They were not surprised by the words that Yun Jian said, but by Yun Jian's aura. Those simple words, which were not shouted or shouted, spread throughout the entire place. Everyone's expressions froze. Even the reporters who wanted to continue the interview were suddenly stuck in their throats, unable to say another word. The entire place was silent for a full 10 seconds. Regardless of whether it was the reporters, the man with the camera, the teachers, or the students from the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China who were passing by, they were all stunned for a full 10 seconds. However, after 10 seconds, when everyone came to their senses, Yun Jian was already standing more than 10 meters away, on the high steps of the female dormitory building, looking down at everyone. Everyone did not even know when Yun Jian had escaped from the group of reporters who had surrounded her. At that moment, Yun Jian was standing on the high steps of the female dormitory building. Before she lifted her foot to step into the female dormitory building, she turned around and squinted her eyes at the reporters who were standing at the bottom of the steps, wanting to interview her. Before she returned to the female dormitory building, she raised her red arc and coldly left a sentence: no comment. If you ask again, it won't be resolved so easily. After she finished speaking, she turned around and lightly swung her ponytail that reached her waist, outlining her perfect and flawless back view with a wave of elegance. This scene made everyone present feel a sense of awe from the bottom of their hearts. So beautiful. It was noon now. The winter sun shone warmly, casting a layer of yellowish glow on Yun Jian. The glow accentuated the swaying curve of her ponytail that reached her waist after she turned around, accentuating the beauty of her swaying ponytail. The men and women present couldn't help but hold their breaths. But what exactly did she mean by those words? If I ask again, it won't be so simple to resolve? All the reporters stood where they were, trying to figure out the meaning of Yun Jian's words. However, just when the reporters didn't know what Yun Jian meant by her words and wanted to catch up with Yun Jian and continue to pester her. Look! My God! Someone suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Then, everyone turned to look in the direction the man had indicated. However, the cameras in the hands of the cameramen who had been chasing after Yun Jian with a few cameras suddenly popped and were all scrapped in front of everyone. This scene caused the hearts of everyone present to panic. There was even a cameraman who widened his eyes in horror and exclaimed, "It's her. It must be her. She just walked past us. She broke our cameras." But in such a short period of time, when she walked past us, she didn't even reach out her hand. How did she? How did he manage to destroy so many cameras without anyone noticing? Was she really a young girl in her teens? Thinking of this, everyone's hearts suddenly trembled. Then, they thought of the sentence Yun Jian left behind. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 22-27. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations the Chairman, she, personally gave it to you. The group of reporters was terrified, so they quickly left. God, that young lady was too scary. She just walked past a few cameramen and didn't even reach out her hand, but those cameras were destroyed right in front of everyone's eyes. This scene was absolutely unimaginable to everyone present. Therefore, combined with the words that Yunjian left just now, everyone shook their heads fiercely and quickly left the scene at lightning speed. What a joke! The young lady destroyed the camera just now, but on second thought, since she had the ability to destroy the camera silently, what if the camera was replaced with a camera head? After a while, the group of people ran away like a wisp of smoke. The few teachers present looked at the scene in front of them with dumbfounded expressions. They had blocked the group of reporters for so long just now, but they couldn't persuade this group of stubborn reporters to leave no matter how hard they tried. They said that they would only leave after they found the news headlines. In the end, the main character, Yun Jian, had only spoken a few words and moved her hands when she appeared. The group of reporters was scared out of their wits. Those cameramen didn't even dare to ask Yun Jian for compensation for the camera. Escaping was more important. The few teachers twitched the corners of their mouths and finally left. Yun Jian returned to the dormitory and slept soundly for the whole afternoon. At 5:00, she carried the school bag that she always carried with her and left the dormitory. This time, the party held by Rongyao Company was quite grand, and it was the venue of the party. And the party had to wear evening gowns. Yun Jian met up with the people from the martial arts club, then changed into a black short gown in a relatively ordinary shop and combed her hair simply. The people from the martial arts club also dressed up carefully and changed into evening gowns. After the group of people tidied up, they took a taxi to the venue of the party, Enchanting building. Enchanting building was a 5-star hotel, and it also decorated the venue of the party. The scene was very grand, so grand that just standing at the entrance of Enchanting building could feel the grand occasion inside. Wow, it's so spectacular. Hua Ling from the martial arts club put her hand on her face and looked at the scene in front of her. She was so excited that she almost screamed. Oh my God. We're not dreaming, right? We can really go inside today. Another girl from the martial arts club said in a daze as she looked at the staff member who was checking and accepting the invitation letters at the gate in the distance. Just as the girl finished speaking, Yun Jian's voice could be heard, "Let's go." At that time, Yun Jian was wearing a short black evening gown. Only her shoulders were exposed from the back. Her perfect figure was matched with the beautiful black evening gown. The back of her shoulder was faintly exposed, and one could even see her stunning collarbone. Needless to say, she could only be described as beautiful. Ah! I'm coming. Even Hua Ling from the martial arts club paused for 2 seconds when she saw Yun Jian's figure. Then, she quickly chased after her. Just as she was about to reach the staff member, Yun Jian turned around. She lowered her voice and spoke to Mo Bufan and the other members of the martial arts club. You can walk around after entering the venue. Remember to leave on time at 7:00. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. After speaking, Yun Jian handed the invitation letter in her hand to the staff member who checked the authenticity of the invitation letter and stopped the guests who did not have an invitation letter from entering the venue. When the male staff member saw that it was a group of people dressed as students, he only glanced at Yun Jian and the others contemptuously. Then, he lazily took the invitation letter from Yun Jian. The male staff member was from the Rongyao Company. This could be seen from the badge on the male staff member's neck. It was normal for some of the members of the Rongyao Company to be rather high and mighty. After all, to be able to work in the Rongyao Company was something that would make a group of people jealous to death. Even if they were to be a floor sweeper in the Rongyao Company, it would be easy for them to earn 500,000 yuan a year. But who knew that after the male staff member lazily took the invitation letter and looked at it lazily, he suddenly straightened his eyes and stared at the invitation letter a few more times. After confirming that there was no mistake, he exclaimed to Yun Jian in front of Mo Bufan and all the other members of the martial arts club present. This invitation letter has the exclusive seal of the chairman of the Rongyao Company. Could it be that you know the chairman of the Rongyao Company? The invitation letter was personally given to you by the chairman of the Rongyao Company. P.S. That's all for today. Good night, everyone. End of this chapter. Seeing that Yun Jian had already entered the venue, the members of the martial arts club hurriedly handed their invitations to the male staff. After passing them, they all followed Yun Jian's footsteps. Yun Jian, just now. After Mo Bufan caught up with Yun Jian's footsteps, he opened his mouth and wanted to ask her about the Rongyao Company chairman's seal. But Mo Bufan had just opened his mouth when he was interrupted by Yun Jian's indifferent voice. That's why this invitation can be sold for a lot of money. You guys have to enjoy tonight. After speaking, Yun Jian did not explain too much. She interrupted Mo Bufan's words and walked forward. Mo Bufan could see that Yun Jian's reaction was purely because she did not want to answer such questions. He twitched the corner of his mouth and finally followed her without asking anything. At the party venue, as soon as Yun Jian and the members of the martial arts club entered, the members of the martial arts club were attracted by the gorgeous scene in front of them. There were more than 20 long tables in the party venue in front of everyone. These long tables were filled with all kinds of delicious desserts. Zhou Huntao, Hua Ling, and the others had never seen so many types of desserts in their lives. Everything that could be found in dessert shops outside was available here. There were hundreds of types of desserts here that could not be found outside. Moreover, there were many wines placed on the large long tables. Even if one casually pointed at one of the bottles of wine on these long tables, the market price of this bottle of wine would not be less than $100,000. Coupled with the gorgeous decorations in the room. Everyone in the martial arts club took a deep breath. They were shocked by this gorgeous scene that they had never seen before and could not react for a long time. I have to leave for a while. Remember to leave at 7:00 on time. After Yun Jian led everyone in here, she turned her head to look at everyone and said such a sentence. After speaking, she did not look at the members of the martial arts club and immediately walked to the side of the party venue. Everyone in the martial arts club nodded. After a while, a member of the martial arts club pointed suspiciously in the direction of Yun Jian and said, "Huh? Yun Jian is." Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 22-29. It's probably someone the president knows. He's definitely not an ordinary person since he can take out so many invitations at once. It's just that the president likes to keep a low profile and he's given us so much good food, so it's better if we don't ask too much. A girl who had her hands on her cheeks in a daze and looked sideways at the almost 20 long tables with a variety of desserts and delicacies, nearly drooling when she spoke. That's right. We just have to listen to the president and leave the venue at 7:00 sharp. Hearing the girl's words, everyone in the martial arts club agreed unanimously. Then, they quickly gathered together to clean up the delicacies on the long tables that no one touched. Unlike the members of the martial arts club, the international bigwigs were not wolfing down the food as if they had not eaten for hundreds of years. In spite of it, the members of the martial arts club could not care less since it was rare for them to eat so much delicacies. They ate happily. By then, Yun Jian had already walked out of the venue with the voluptuous girl. The voluptuous girl was none other than Alluring Demon, the president of Rongyao Company on behalf of Yun Jian. At this time, the demoness was wearing a bright red lace low-cut evening gown. This bright red lace low-cut evening gown outlined her exquisite and well-proportioned figure. When men saw it, they almost had a nosebleed. Both of them walked out of the venue and came to the garden near the venue. Yun Jian crossed her arms and led Alluring Demon to the garden before turning around to face the latter. Go on as usual tonight. Be careful, don't expose yourself. Okay, Sister Jian. Alluring Witch nodded at that. Yun Jian nodded and turned to head back to the venue. Hey, Yun Jian. You're coming to tonight's party too? Just as Yun Jian was about to head to the venue, a surprised voice rang out. Yun Jian turned and saw 5 people led by Jian Ning. Jian Ning, Zhang Xiaoyu, Malefo, Zhang Jingjing, and Qin Dashun. Seeing Yun Jian, Jian Ning, Zhang Xiaoyu, and the others were obviously stunned. After all, the people who were able to attend this banquet were all of high status. For Yun Jian to be able to come here, it meant that her status was naturally not ordinary. Yun Jian's eyes narrowed slightly when she saw Jian Ning and the others. She nodded subtly. Yes. Upon hearing this, Jian Ning ran over and grabbed Yun Jian's hand. That's great. We happen to be together. Just now, the 5 of us walked around the banquet hall. The surrounding people were all international big shots. We didn't know any of them, so we planned to walk a few rounds in the garden here. We didn't expect to meet you. Yun Jian stared at Jian Ning for 2 seconds, then smiled and said, then let's go together. Then, Yun Jian and Jian Ning walked into the banquet hall together. She had just walked 2 laps around the banquet hall when she saw Kai Huiling, who had failed to show off at the martial arts club last time and had run away after being humiliated. At this time, Kai Huiling was holding the hand of a middle-aged man and walking over. Obviously, this middle-aged man was her father. At this moment, Kai Huiling was wearing a colorful evening dress. It seemed that this dress had been specially designed by a designer. She saw Yun Jian in the distance. Originally, she wanted to go around, but when she saw Jian Ning and the others beside Yun Jian, she was angry and walked over. Hey, look, who is this? The new president of our martial arts club. Huh, what's wrong? You ruined the reporter's kind interview in the morning, and now you have the nerve to appear here? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2230. Although news reporters traveled everywhere and would visit wherever there was big news, no matter how much these news reporters loved to travel, the biggest headline of the evening was none other than the gala that had caused a sensation all over the world. Therefore, most of the news reporters who wanted to interview Yun Jian in the morning would come to the gala to continue their interview work. Of course, the premise was that these news reporters had to be approved by the Rongyao Company, which had invited all the international bigwigs to the gala, before they could enter the venue. However, most companies would allow news reporters to enter such a venue to film an interview. After all, if a big company wanted to hold a gala, wouldn't it be to promote the company's good name? Therefore, Kai Huiling guessed that the news reporters who had been provoked by Yun Jian in the morning would probably be there too. After all, if you offended a news reporter, it was not impossible for the reporter to take a picture of your ugly side and exaggerate it to write a report to be published in the news. It was also because she had heard that Yun Jian had provoked a group of news reporters who wanted to interview her in the morning, and had even broken all the cameras of the group of photographers. Therefore, when Kai Huiling saw Yun Jian, she hurried over. After all, the cameras in 2003 were high-end goods that had to be imported from abroad and were very expensive. It would be strange if those news reporters and photographers did not hold a grudge. Hearing Kai Huiling say that there would be news reporters and photographers coming to the gala to interview the bigwigs, Yun Jian's eyes darkened slightly. Seeing Yun Jian's slightly darkened eyes, Kai Huiling thought that Yun Jian was afraid of the news reporter's revenge. She held her father's hand and did not even give the others a chance to react or speak before she hurriedly continued to speak to Yun Jian. So, you'd better hurry up and find a place to hide, in case those news reporters take revenge on you. Ha ha ha. As Kai Huiling spoke, she threw a contemptuous look at Yun Jian. Wait, this classmate, you said that Yun Jian provoked the news reporters? This is... Jian Ning was stunned when she heard this, and then she spoke in disbelief. As soon as she asked this question, Kai Huiling rushed to explain again, I wasn't there at the time, but I heard that Yun Jian not only refused to be interviewed by a news reporter, but... Pfft. He even smashed the cameraman's camera. In fact, it only took Yun Jian 10 seconds to destroy the cameraman's camera. However, in these 10 seconds, the people present did not even notice how she made her move. After Yun Jian walked past them, the cameras were instantly destroyed. At that time, the group of news reporters was shocked. Kai Huiling was also shocked when she heard about it. In spite of it, Kai Huiling was here to deal with Yun Jian instead of praising her, so what she said was, of course, a negative spin. Reporters have to go in too. Yun Jian frowned again when she heard that. Kai Huiling was sure that Yun Jian was afraid that the reporters would take revenge on her after they entered the venue. Therefore, Kai Huiling's smile deepened. Just as Kai Huiling thought so and smiled confidently, Yun Jian suddenly whipped out her phone and dialed a number in front of everyone. Before the other end of the line could be heard and the call was picked up, she spoke faintly in front of everyone, "I'm sorry. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile reading website. Chapter 2231. Yun Jian's words rang clearly in everyone's ears. In the ears of Kai Huiling, Jian Ning, Zhang Xiaoyu, and the others present, the meaning of his words was like a tempestuous storm. Everyone's expression changed drastically. If she could say that, it meant that, Was she a senior executive of Rongyao Company? Was she kidding? Rongyao Company was located in Country M and had been established for many years. There was no shortage of elites in Rongyao Company. In Rongyao Company, even an ordinary employee had an annual salary of more than 1 million yuan. Not to mention the senior executives of Rongyao Company. Of course, the higher the annual salary, the higher the requirements. If one wanted to be a senior executive of Rongyao Company, he or she had to be an international bigwig. It was not something an ordinary person could do. Was Yun Jian not bluffing and fabricating something out of nothing with what she said? Even Kai Huiling's father, a middle-aged man with shifty eyes, who was only about 1.6 meters tall and was so thin that his suit couldn't hold the hem of his clothes, couldn't help but stand up and speak in a disdainful tone. "Little girl, you're the one who loves to talk nonsense the most among all the little girls I've ever seen. It's the Rongyao Company's internal matter whether they invite reporters or not. You can't be a senior executive of Rongyao Company. It's better for a little girl like you to go back to school and study obediently. Why did you come to such a big event to join in on the fun? Tonight, it's a scene for adults. I really don't know how you bunch of brats managed to sneak in after getting the invitation letter. I have to say that the guards of Rongyao Company are really bad. They actually let some unimportant little kids sneak in." Kai Iliang spoke to Yun Jian and the others in a tone of speaking to them as if they were children. Kai Iliang thought that Yun Jian and the others sneaked in. After all, those who received invitations usually came with their parents. Taking a cursory glance at the scene, he found that except for the members of the martial arts club that Yun Jian had brought in, as well as Jian Ning's group of 5, the rest of the people who were about the same age as Yun Jian were all accompanied by their parents. This wasn't strange. In fact, some young girls were brought to such a big occasion by their parents not only to broaden their horizons, but also to enter a better social circle and get to know better people. Therefore, most of them were accompanied by their parents. Looking around the scene, he really couldn't find anyone like Yun Jian, the members of the martial arts club, or the young girls in their early 20s who came by themselves like Jian Ning and the other 4. Therefore, Kai Iliang's words were pardonable. Kai Iliang's words did not give Yun Jian any face at all. After hearing Kai Iliang's words, Yun Jian merely narrowed her eyes and didn't say anything. Yun Jian did not say anything because, a second later, the lights went out. Another second later, a beautiful neon light flashed. Above a spiral staircase, an enchanting and charming woman appeared. After this enchanting and charming woman appeared at the top of the spiral staircase, all the beautiful neon lights shone on this enchanting and charming woman. This woman in a bright red lace low-cut evening dress was none other than Demon Woman. At that time, Demon Woman was standing at the top of the spiral staircase. She introduced herself and said these words, "Hello, everyone, I am the president of Rongyao Company, Demon Woman. I just received a notice from my subordinates. At the request of my superiors, there will be no news reporters at tonight's party, so I would like to thank all the international bigwigs from all over the world. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2232. What the demoness said was just a simple opening. Standing at the top of the spiral staircase, before the demoness said these simple opening, she also emphasized that there would be no news reporters at the ball tonight. This meant that this group of international bigwigs could talk freely in the ball venue. No matter what they said, they didn't need to care, because everything that was said at the ball tonight would not be reported. The demoness just repeated in front of everyone that Yun Jian had just called the staff of the Rongyao company to manage the ball tonight. But when these words were heard, Kai Iliang felt as if he had heard something shocking. Kai Iliang just said that Yun Jian was not a senior executive of the Rongyao company. Why would a little girl come here to attend an adult's ball? It would be better for her to go back to school and study. As soon as he said this, he heard the president of the Rongyao company standing in front of all the international bigwigs and saying these words. This feeling, to Kai Iliang, was simply, Dad. After Kai Huiling heard the words of the president of the Rongyao company, the demoness, she fiercely pulled Kai Iliang's wrist, and her face instantly turned pale. Fortunately, all the lights in the hall were turned off at this moment. All the neon lights shone on the demoness standing at the top of the spiral staircase, so outsiders could not see Kai Huiling's face at this moment. At this moment, Kai Huiling secretly acted coquettishly to Kai Iliang. Don't panic, don't panic. This is just a coincidence. Kai Iliang stood in the dark and secretly comforted Kai Huiling. In fact, before coming, Kai Huiling told Kai Iliang all the things that she had been bullied by Yun Jian. When Kai Iliang heard that his daughter was bullied in front of outsiders, he was so angry that he promised Kai Huiling on the spot that he would help his daughter get back at Yun Jian. That was why Kai Huiling saw Yun Jian pulling her father, Kai Iliang, and quickly walking towards her and mocking her. At that time, Kai Iliang secretly told his daughter, Kai Huiling. Kai Iliang secretly said this to Kai Huiling. He thought that Yun Jian couldn't hear him at all. At that time, Yun Jian pretended that she didn't hear Kai Iliang's words. She lowered her eyes in the dark and didn't say anything. The demoness only said a few words and announced that it was 6:00 and the party had officially begun. Then, she left the stage. Ha! I don't know how you guessed that the reporters wouldn't show up tonight, but some people just can't hide their poverty. I've never attended such a large-scale international party before, so I can't imitate the demeanor of a lady from a wealthy family no matter how I try. Since you have the opportunity to come to such a large-scale event, then watch and learn. The life of the upper class. Kai Huiling's words had always been vicious. This had started from the time Yun Jian had stepped on her in front of everyone, causing her to lose face. Hearing Kai Huiling's words, Jian Ning and the others were stunned. Yun Jian's cold eyes only moved slightly, but she didn't say anything. As Kai Iliang watched, he suddenly wanted to help his daughter raise her social status. At this moment, he looked around and suddenly saw an old acquaintance. This old acquaintance was an old friend he met in country Y. When Kai Iliang saw this, he hurriedly waved at him in English. Hey, Jamie. Over here. My daughter wants to talk to you in English. As Kai Iliang said this, he pushed Kai Huiling in front of this old acquaintance of his. As he spoke, Kai Iliang glanced at Yun Jian like a child and urged Kai Huiling, "What's the matter? My daughter has been learning English since elementary school, and she's already at level 9. Quick, Huiling, try to talk to your Uncle Jamie." When Kai Huiling heard this, she hurriedly said a few words to Jamie in front of everyone. Jamie exchanged a few words with Kai Huiling and nodded with a smile, but he was about to leave after a while. When Kai Iliang saw this, he thought that he had gained enough face in front of Yun Jian. He was about to turn around and show off to Yun Jian that his daughter, Kai Huiling, had spoken a few standard everyday words. But suddenly, he heard Yun Jian use extremely fluent English to call out to Jamie, who had originally wanted to find an excuse to turn around and leave because he didn't want to talk to Kai Huiling, whose pronunciation wasn't standard, in front of everyone. Are you the manager of the International Trade Center, Mr. Jamie? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website, you're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.